Good evening. I now call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, January the 12th. And Ms. Hall, if you could take roll.
Mr. Frank.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Castro.
Here.
Mrs. Forrest.
Here.
And I'm here. I guess we're here.
We have a quorum. I'd like to welcome Tristan, and remind me your last name.
Schlotthauer.
Schlotthauer. I didn't want to mispronounce it, and he's a senior at Mayfield High School. So welcome, Tristan, and we have much to discuss today. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this takes us to the approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the May 17th, 2016 special meeting minutes and the May 19th, 2016 special meeting minutes.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Are there any abstentions or nays? Okay. We move on to 1F, approval of agenda. And Dr. Sanchez has something he wants to say about that.
Madam President, members of the committee, what I would recommend, we had placed an agenda item on item 5, which we are asking you to remove because we do not at this time need any adjustments to the search advisory plan.
Okay.
And that was Dr. Marubo, where was that?
I think it's at the last page,
5B, I've got all of your
on page 5.
comments here.
Approval of modifications to the
Yes.
superintendent search process.
If you would remove, I would request that we can remove that because we will not need to make any modifications. And that was put in place in case it would take us a little bit longer to publish things in the national journals. But they're actually real time, so we can publish right away.
Great. Okay, so then I will entertain a motion to remove item 5B5, approval of modifications to the superintendent search process from the agenda.
I so move.
We have a first,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that passes. I will then entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, first and a second. All in favor of approving the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
So that passes. Now we move on to 1G, approval of consent agenda items. I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 4C1, approval of budget adjustments, 4C2, approval of bids, 4C3, approval of property dispositions, 4D1, approval of supplemental fleet services agreement, 5B1, third reading and approval of policy JB Title IX, gender equity for students, and 5B2, third reading and approval of policy GBAA, Title IX, gender equity for staff. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Can we have discussion?
Yes.
Oh, should we be approving these third readings as part of the consent agenda?
Unless we remove it from the consent agenda, if you want to remove it, we can.
Yeah, I would like to remove it.
Okay, so then I will readjust and I will entertain a motion to approve all consent agenda items except for 5B1 and 5B2 to be taken out of consent and placed on the agenda for discussion. Do I have a motion? I'm hoping that is good.
That is correct.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote, Ms. Hall?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Okay, sorry. All right, so then we are going to take VB1 and VB2 and put it on regular agenda for discussion, and then to vote for it.
Madam
Okay.
President? You
Yes.
still need to approve the amended agenda. You did the
Right.
removal of the consent items.
Okay, so now I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items minus the two policies that we have removed.
I so move.
Okay, and we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that the consent agenda items have been passed, are approved. Okay, that takes us to public input. Before we move to public input, I would like to remind everyone that it is the board's practice not to respond to or take action on any statements made during public input. Do we have any sheets? I don't have any
I
here.
do not have any sheets, Madam President.
Okay.
Are there any
No?
sheets, Mr.
Okay.
Hand?
Okay, so then if no one wishes to stand up and say anything, then we will move on. Okay. So then this takes us to the interim superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board and those in attendance at tonight's meeting, thank you for being here. I want to express my gratitude to the board, staff, and the community members for their warm welcome. The past 7 days, this is the 7th day, have indeed been busy, and I'm enjoying reacquainting myself with the tremendous work that's going on in the Las Cruces public school systems. Tonight, I would like to recognize and help me in my superintendent's report 2 individuals who have joined the staff in the superintendent's office, and that's Rebecca Archuleta and Maria Wagner. If these 2 ladies would please stand up and be recognized. These 2 ladies staff the front office and will provide a positive and welcoming environment for our community members, parents, and students. And I wanted the board and the community to see them because they are going to be our first introduction to a great environment that we will be creating here at the Las Cruces Public Schools. Thank you for being with us.
Welcome.
Secondly, Madam President and members of the board, I would like to recognize Mr. Tim Hand as a personal point of privilege and officially announce to the board and the community that Mr. Hand has accepted the awesome responsibility of serving our public education system in New Mexico as Deputy Director for the Legislative Education Study Committee in Santa Fe. Tim reports to work this coming Friday. There is an LESC meeting in Los Alamos, and he has to be there bright and early, so we told him he could finish his workday on Thursday, his last official day, at least 9:30 or 10 o'clock, because that would give him plenty of time to get to Los Alamos by 8 o'clock the following morning. He has been an exceptional addition to the Las Cruces educational family and served as director for the Assessment Accountability and Research Department and has been performing double duty for the past year as the chief of staff for the superintendent. Tim, I really want to thank you for your dedication and your action-oriented commitment to the students in our district. As coach, chief of staff, and director of AAR, that's quite a bit and a lot to handle. Your commitment to students is recognized. You always went above and beyond for every student every day, and we wish you well in your new adventure. Would you please stand up and be recognized by the board? Madam President and members of the board, I would like to recognize 2 individuals who will assist me in the K3 Plus update today. Ms. Carla Reagan, principal of Loma Heights Elementary, and Ms. Lisa Davis, a 7-year kindergarten veteran teacher at MacArthur Elementary. I have asked them to provide their unique perspective on the power of the K3 Plus program as it relates to students. This is not a data presentation, but rather an insight into the education of the whole child. from the unique perspective of two very dedicated individuals. Ms. Reagan.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez. Like you said, I'm Carla Reagan. I am now the principal at Loma Heights Elementary, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about the K3+ programs. So I have worked the K3+ program since they started here in the district. In fact, the first year it was just K+, and I started with that. So throughout the years, I have noticed many benefits of the program. Perhaps the most important and most notable are the social aspects that we see in our students, especially our kindergarten students. Sorry. So I think the most important of that social aspect, what we see is those students become leaders and mentors to the other students in their classrooms, grade levels, and school-wide. They come early and they have the opportunity to begin to learn what it means to be ready to learn. And they get to learn that in an environment that's less stressful than the regular school year. There's less students, less teachers, and they get the opportunity to practice those, the rules and procedures and what it means to be ready. So I think the most exciting piece for me is when I see kindergarten students come in the door and they're not ready to learn and they don't know what it means to be a student. And through this program, we see that transformation. And they become ready to learn and they become leaders. And you really can see the difference the first day of school, the regular school year, those students that attended the K3+ program and the students that didn't. And they become those leaders and you see their confidence build and you see them really proud of themselves because they're ready to learn. This year at Loma Heights, we're starting a new program called Time to Teach. Time to Teach is exactly what it says. It gives teachers time to teach because they spend the time up front teaching the students teach-tos, which are the procedures and rules that will make them successful in school. It teaches them how they should behave in the cafeteria, the playground, etc. And so this year, those teachers that are teaching K3+ have the opportunity to practice that with their students now. And those students are really becoming leaders of the Teach-Tos. It's exciting, just in less than 2 weeks, we've seen those students really understand what the procedures are. And so they'll now be able to lead those students that start during the regular school year on what the expectations are. One of the other really important things that I've noticed throughout the years is that the teachers get the time to start to look at where students possibly have some gaps or things that need to be filled in literacy or numeracy. They get to really target and pinpoint exactly where students maybe aren't performing where they need to be. And during this time, they get to spend that time with them, either small group, one-on-one, and they get to start the SAT process. And so during this time, the students that get the opportunity to come to K3+ get to almost complete a whole cycle of intervention before school starts. And so what we've noticed is the gains that these kids make help many students to exit the SAT process after K3+. So I could go on and on about all of the benefits, but I think that like I said, those are the most important pieces. And when I go into classrooms and I go on the playground and cafeteria, I really see those leaders emerge from the kids that went to K3+. And if you ask them, you think that they would say they weren't ready for their summer to end, but it's quite the opposite. They tell you they're ready to be there and they're ready to learn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla. Lisa.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is very different compared to speaking in front of 5-year-olds. You're very attentive. I don't need to even redirect, so thank you. I truly believe the K3+ program provides our students with learning opportunities that help them succeed through the regular school year. Especially in high poverty schools like the school I work at, many of our students come into the classroom without having any type of prior educational setting. The K3+ program provides them with time to develop their social skills, emotional skills, coping skills. They also learn the routines and procedures. and that gives us more time to teach them math and literacy. I always knew K3 Plus was an amazing program, but it really hit home for me last year. I had always worked K3 Plus, and I took the summer off so that I could go to the Women's Soccer World Cup. It was an amazing trip, but when I came home and returned to school in August, I was in for a surprise. I saw an astronomical difference in my students compared to students who had attended K3 Plus, and I felt as though I was playing catch up with the rest of my team for a couple of months. The K3 Plus students I have taught and I've watched grow through 5th grade have shown tremendous growth, outperformed others, and are leaders in the classroom. In conclusion, as much as I enjoy my summer vacations, I will continue to teach K3 Plus because I've seen firsthand the difference it makes and helps them succeed in school. Thank you.
Could you please, what is the name of your teacher? I'm sorry, we didn't get it. Lisa Davis. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your coming and talking about it, and it's true that not only is it literacy and numeracy, it's also social skills. And I think it's just very important, the work that you're doing, so.
Thank you, Madam President. A lot of times we hear a lot of data presentations, and I've heard oftentimes kids aren't just numbers. And I think the perspective of this incredible teacher and the principal is important for us to remember what is in the power of teaching and learning. I would also like to acknowledge the school district for being a leader in the K3 Plus movement. This initiative started under the direct leadership of Dr. Elizabeth Marufo over 6 years ago. Today, Lydia Polanco and Janet Candelaria co-planned this year's program, and based on the positive results of over 6 years of implementation, stories like the one we just heard from the teacher and the principal, I am going to plant a seed in the mind of the board, perhaps. I'm going to recommend that the board consider, at a future date, as part of your legislative agenda, the inclusion of a request for funding for a pilot program to be conducted in LCPS similar to the design of the K3 Plus initiative for 4 and 5-year-old students. And in talking to some of the K3 Plus teachers since I've been here, I think that's maybe something we should think about. And our focus on early childhood education and the research that tells us how important it is, especially for the children in the community that we serve. So put that in your mind, and we'll talk about it at some point in time. I would also like to inform the board that the English Language Learner Summit Academy at Las Cruces High School continues to provide 15 days, that's 3 weeks, of differentiated support for ELL learners in keeping them on track to graduation. Impressively, Michelle Ronga, the assistant principal at Las Cruces High School, has been shepherd of this program along with 4 other incredible teachers, and those teachers many of you know. As a result of this effort, I'd like everybody to know that 60 students, 60, that's not a trivial number, 60 students are on target to graduate this coming May. Of this coming school year. Students who, because of a variety of circumstances, may not have graduated. Madam President and members of the board, I mention this program to you because I'm also wanting to plant another seed. Yeah, I'm pretty seed planting tonight. It's because I come from Belen where we have a farm. Not that I work the farm. You may also want to include a request for funding from the state legislature as part of your legislative package to expand this program across other high schools. Las Cruces High School paved the way, and it's time to start spreading this powerful and innovative practice. Another first effort took place in our district this summer at the Challenger Learning Center. And if you haven't been to the Challenger Learning Center, please give me a call and I will take you over there myself. I always get excited when I go to that place. Not only did the center provide outreach to every 6th grade student in our district this year as part of the middle school science program, but it also provided summer learning opportunities for over 100 students, 124 actually, this summer. As we continue this effort this coming school year, I would recommend that the Board of Education support our efforts, our staff efforts in seeking additional funding through the public and private sector to enhance a scholarship program for students whose families are not in a position to pay the associated registration fee, which was $150 this year, and that we actually engage a process where we could establish and contribute to a scholarship program to allow lots more kids to participate over the summer. Madam President and members of the board, the search process that you adopted at your June 21st meeting is on schedule. On June 7th, 54 community members gathered at the Las Cruces High School. And for members of the audience in attendance, we have a breakdown of the representation of that committee for your information. These community members actively engaged in a day-long discussion of those characteristics and skill sets they are recommending to the board as highly desirable as our community selects its next superintendent. As required by your plan, the board submitted the names of participants on July 1st, and the representation by constituency groups is reported. The next major step in the plan calls for the posting of the position on July 13th. We are ready to do that, thanks to the cabinet members and many others, once the board concludes its business tonight of identifying those characteristics and other information that needs to go into the advertisement. Madam President, I would like to share a small reflection on budget and the budget process and personnel, because as I watched board meetings, I know this was an important issue to many of our community members and to the board members themselves. I'd like to report that the Cabinet has seriously considered and is actively planning a process that will report to the board and community on identified monthly expenditures. That was a request that I remember one of the community members made, and the board asked for that. And savings, so not only the expenditures, but the savings that can be flagged to potentially allow for the addition of personnel as needs arise, and classroom supplies. After my visit on July 1st to all the K3+ teachers, I started hearing about classroom supplies. So potentially allow for the addition of personnel and classroom supplies as need arise. Tonight, Dr. Marufo will introduce our first look at personnel needs in her Human Resources report, with a full report on savings, flagging money, and where we're going to use those resources for personnel. I can assure the board that I am personally committed to examining class loads, teacher by teacher, to ensure that our students are not placed in overcrowded classrooms. We will use statutory guidelines as we engage this process. I am recommending that we give the highest priority to our early learning classrooms, K through 3, and that we also very carefully examine the student-to-teacher ratio in our high schools. Teacher by teacher, period by period, not aggregate numbers, but that we do a careful examination by that. In addition, I commit to engaging our stakeholders in not only understanding the process, but also in understanding the budget and how staffing decisions are made. Our first full report to the board and community will be in August, when we have a better understanding of preliminary registration numbers, and this examination will intensify during the first 10 and 20 days after the opening of school, when real kids show up. In addition, Madam President, I am recommending that our Finance and Audit Committee meetings be noticed to allow community members and interested stakeholders to attend and become better acquainted with the budget process. This is how we will reach an understanding, and while we may not always agree on things, at least we can understand as the basis of our disagreement, which is better than just not understanding at all. So, Madam President, this concludes your interim superintendent's report, and I stand for any questions the board may have.
Board members, do you have any comments or questions on any of the things that Dr. Sanchez presented right now?
No questions.
No? Okay.
Good job.
Everyone, well, I just want to compliment you on you said 7 days, and this is very speedy and very efficient and so wonderful to hear, especially the savings part. If we can help our teachers out, and that's all we can ask for, is to look for savings. I appreciate that effort.
Thank you, Madam President, and I do want to comment that every cabinet member, we've spent a lot of time discussing this already, and every cabinet member is fully on board and committed to doing
And
this.
I thank the cabinet as well. Thank you for your efforts, really. That's all we can ask for. Okay, thank you, Dr. Sanchez. We'll now move on to other reports, the human resources. Dr. Marufo.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Sanchez. I guess that's the appropriate way to address that.
That sounds good.
Before you, you have the the certified classified employee report for the month of June.
A little louder, please, so we
Maybe I
can,
should go there.
I don't know,
Why
maybe,
don't you try that, please?
because Mr. Davis can't hear.
having some trouble.
Thank you.
He can't hear you, too. I'm not the only one.
All right, I'm not saying who it was.
If it's true.
Speak loud into that microphone.
Is this better?
Yeah,
Perfect.
much better.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Sanchez. This evening, I'm here to present the Las Cruces Public Schools Certified Classified Employee Report for the month of June. In your packets and posted were the offers of employment, rehires, resignations, retirements, and leave of absence requests we received during the month of June. Pretty standard reporting as we do each month. However, of particular note, I would like to, excuse me, point out that this month's report, excuse me, includes rehires. You will recall that most of those rehires were previously in our temporary terminate status. However, we want to keep, attract, and retain our high-quality employees. So all of those rehires were recommended by their school principals for continued employment for the 16-17 school year. In the certified category, we had 34 certified employees recommended for reemployment and 55 employees recommended in the classified category. And I stand for any questions that you may have regarding this report.
Board members, do we have any questions? Mr. Davis?
Yes, in terms of the kindergarten children, how did you reach that? And I understand there was only 1 day for registration of the kindergarten children, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Are you asking Mr. Davis how that is staffed?
How well is it going to be staffed, and what are we going to do if it, as traditionally, they don't show up till some later time? And what process do we have to respond to that?
Absolutely. So, Senora Flores, Mr. Davis, the way we address the staffing and we project the staff for kindergarten is based on the number of kindergartners that are currently in kindergarten. We kind of use that number to take a look. We also look within the first 10 days of school because we do staff based on the current enrollment on the 80th day. However, we know students move during the summer. And within the first 10 days of the school year, we will make quick adjustments to meet the needs. If we have overcrowded kindergarten classrooms, we will take a look at reassigning teachers to those overloaded classrooms.
Well, also, overloaded classrooms, don't they have aides?
Yes, any kindergarten class with 16 or 15 to 20 students is entitled to an educational assistant.
And that's going to be in our process to ensure that occurs?
Yes, sir, it always has been in our process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Mr. Castro, you have a question?
Yeah, Madam Chair and Ms. Barrojo, what is the yearly attrition rate or turnover rate for our district, and how does it compare to the state attrition rate yearly?
So right off the bat, I do not have that information, but I'd be happy to research that and provide it at our August meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So just for clarification, to make sure we get the board accurate information on what it's requesting, you're talking about the attrition rate, so the number of teachers leaving annually and how we compare to other districts across the state
Right.
or the region.
I like the addition of the rehires also. That's good to keep track of. Thank you for doing that, Dr. Marufo. No one has any more questions, so then we'll move on to the next item.
Dr. Marufo?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Sanchez, that's a lot of words. ISS. So before you, I have the updates from Human Resources. I'd like to just continuously give you some updates from the personnel side, the personnel department. Next slide, please. The first, I would just like to walk you and as well as the members of our audience, the process that we go through in terms of administrator selection. So I'll be using these terms in the left column throughout the presentation. The first column looks at phases. What phase are we in when we're looking to hire new administrators? The first is we post the position, and those positions are typically posted for a minimum of 5 days. The next phase is the screening phase, where applicants are screened in accordance with minimum and preferred qualifications. The qualified applicants are then invited to interview for the position for which they've applied. The next phase is interviewing. Interviews are conducted in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement, Article 6E for the certified staff and Article 19C2 classified. That deals with equal representation on those interviews. Then after those interviews are conducted, the committee will recommend 2 or 3 recommendations to be sent on to the superintendent or the superintendent's designee for final selection. The superintendent meets with the applicants and makes a determination along if it's for a school administrative role. He might invite someone from the instruction department or perhaps someone from that school, but they're looking to ensure that the selections made are the best match for the school's community. Then the last phase is selection. The selection is finalized and announced, and so those are some of the emails you received from Joe Galvan, and I've been reporting last month and today. Next slide, please. So since our last month's meeting, we've had several new administrators come on board with us. You can see most of those, or all of those there, are assistant principals. We hired a new assistant principal at Cesar Chavez, Columbia, Highland, Jornada, Loma Heights, Mesilla, Sunrise, Tombaugh, and University Hills. Next slide, please. We also are in process, we're in the interviewing phase for the assistant principalships at Desert Hills, Hermosa Heights, and Hillrise Elementary. We were in the selection phase for the assistant principalship at Lynn Middle School. Jenny Kletchka was selected as the assistant principal for Lynn Middle School. We were also in the interviewing phase when I prepared this report. Then it moved quickly to the selection phase, and Jennifer Hahn, who is in our instruction department, was selected for the assistant principalship at Las Cruces High School. In terms of district administrator positions in process, we're currently in the interviewing phase for the chief financial officer, the chief operations officer, purchasing contracts administrator, A selection is in progress for the education data specialist, and we're also in the selection phase for the assistant director for analysis and research. This year, you know, with the reallocations and the cuts to schools, we had several displaced employees. 64 displaced employees have been reassigned within the district. 13 of the 64 were staff development specialists who were reassigned to retooled positions. They were interviewed and selected. We also had 51 teachers reassigned. Of the 51 teachers, 38 were elementary teachers, 8 were middle school teachers, and 5 were high school teachers. Human Resources did provide an email to school administrators regarding the displaced employee process in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement, and you can see both agreements referenced at the bottom of this slide. Next slide, please. Now comes our work. I know we've focused a lot on taking a careful look at our class sizes and looking at overloads and preparing for that. So we're working on a plan. Beginning tomorrow, I will meet with secondary principals, namely the middle school principals tomorrow, to review preliminary course enrollment numbers. In classes prior to school beginning, we want to jump out in front of it and have a plan of action to be able to move quickly to address the needs of students. We will develop a plan of action tomorrow with the middle school principals. Next Wednesday, I'll be meeting with the 4 principals from the comprehensive high schools. In August, as mentioned by Dr. Sanchez, we will monitor the first 10 and 20 days of enrollment by school. We will be making adjustments during that time as well. We will take appropriate action to reassign staff, hire staff, to meet the needs of students in courses with overloads. Next slide. This is just a reminder of the New Mexico Administrative Code in terms of staffing patterns, class loads, and teacher loads, and we're really trying to adhere to those numbers.
Go back to that. Bill, go back to that slide. And I think it's important, this, as I mentioned, this will be, the statutory language will serve as our baseline, and that's what we'll use as a guide as we make our reports to you. So I wanted it clear to the board that these are the numbers, but I want it also to be clear that looking at your high school numbers, statutory time now says maximum 27 and 7 to 8, and at 9 through 12, maximum 30, even though regular English teachers have 150 total, but we don't want 45 kids in third period English, but yet we're still under the 150 total. So that's why I say it's important to examine these class by class, period by period, teacher by teacher. Okay, so that's what the cabinet and I have been working on, is this plan. So we're developing, and these will be our baseline.
It looks a lot better than it did before. I think it has come down, so I'm hopeful that this is more manageable now for our teachers.
And thanks to the cabinet and Dr. Marufo's leadership on this, because we're really cranking hard, Madam President.
Thank you. And does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
On this New Mexico Administrative Code, are there any consequences if we violate it?
So if we happen to go over, we would have that discussion in cabinet and look at appropriate actions to take. If a class is over by 3, I wouldn't be too worried about it. We would probably look at applying for a waiver. If courses are over by 10 or 15, then that's a different story. Again, we would be communicating with the public education department. I'm sure they're monitoring our attendance as well from their end.
So it does sound like it's a compulsory requirement. something
It
we
is.
have to adhere to.
It is, Madam President, Mr. Frank, and through our state student data reporting system, once things get to Santa Fe, they will let us know if we're over those statutory limits. It's just like the qualifications for our teachers. As we enter license numbers, they've got to be highly qualified in the area. The state will send us back a report. This teacher is not highly qualified to teach this area. So there are procedures in place. Yes,
Oh,
there
good.
are.
Thank you.
No,
Two more questions. The posting, where are the posting, where do they take place?
So on our district website, if you, up at the top bar of the website, it says jobs/employment. If you click on that, all of the postings will pop up. And it shows you by category how many administrative positions we have open, how many elementary, middle school, high school. All of the categories are located on the left.
So as
Bill,
you can
right
see,
there.
we've just pulled up the website for you. And this
Right
is for
there.
anyone in the audience.
There you
Third
go.
tab over.
Okay.
And go ahead and click on that, Bill. Oh,
It's going to take a little
taking
while.
loading, but
yeah.
that's where it is, Madam President,
Right, so on the left, you can see vacancies, and that's where all of our current vacancies are listed.
by category.
It's quite different than what I experienced when I was in the job market. So, no, that's very interesting, and of course, it's accessible to people within and without, which is good.
Correct.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
The 51 number on one of the slides, I think it was 51 teachers were displaced.
64?
Yeah, 64, but 51 of them were teacher positions.
Correct.
Does that correspond to the 51 that we were looking at when we were trying to come up with a budget for this year? I seem to
I
remember
don't
the.
think so.
No. So the
51.
ones we were looking at for budget were the positions that were being cut.
Right,
Which we ended
Yeah.
up at 49 at that point.
Right.
correct.
These are the people who, after the resignations and retirements, these were people who were displaced. For example, if a school was downsizing by a teacher, that teacher would have gone on the displaced list. And we sent out a memo asking them for 5 preferences to provide us so we could place them in one of their preferences when appropriate.
I'm just trying to grasp what 51 displaced position means.
It
And how is that different than 51 positions cut?
The schools had to cut a certain number, so these teachers were put on the to-be-placed list.
So 51 were cut. The 51 positions disappeared, so people that occupying them had to move somewhere else. That's why
Well-
they're called displaced.
Well, those were in.
Madam President, Mr. Frank, I wasn't here at that time, and I would ask Terry Dean if you could actually comment on that, Terry, from a budget perspective.
I will try. Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Frank. The numbers that you're looking at there, those, if I'm not mistaken, those were in the positions that were shrunk. So we took those people, those individuals, and placed them in other vacant, I can't talk without my hands and I whack the mic, but they were placed in other positions that were vacated due to retirements and resignations. Did I state that correctly?
Yes, and I think, Senora Flores, Mr. Frank, I think when we looked, I'll take high school, for example, I think we were looking at 29 cuts in the end to the high schools. Do you recall that?
Right,
29 was
right.
the final number. However, in the end, we only had to place 5 teachers in
For high
other
school.
positions. There's moving parts because teachers move, the courses change, and so it's just a moving target when we're assigning teachers.
And these were the ones that the superintendent told us that they were guaranteed a job in the district. but they are not the ones that were not renewed. The contracts were not renewed. The last hired, or whatever it is we want to call it, those were 49 positions that were cut. And so this is a different number from the 49. Now, Dr. Sanchez is looking for savings within our budget as he goes through this to place back some of that 49. Not all of them, I don't think, but
No.
some.
As needed, based on the needs of the classes, the number of teachers, or to fill whatever, so
Right,
yes.
wherever the large numbers are. Did we get all your questions, Mr. Frank?
Almost.
Almost. Okay, do you have another one?
No, I'm just not, I'm
Okay.
not totally clear on the last one.
Okay.
Madam
yeah.
President, Mr. Frank, what I will offer to do is to meet privately, and we'll prepare a little
Absolutely.
brief for you, and it'll be good for me to come up to speed on your question as well.
Okay.
And we'll get that in an email to you as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Marufo. That was, if we could have a copy of that page that has the numbers, like for K1, 2, 3, that one.
That page.
And just so that we can keep it in our folders. That would be
Absolutely.
great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we move on. We're going to skip instruction. We've already done everything with finance, I think, and this will take us to operations. And Mr. Dean.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez, included in your packet tonight is the construction projects update. Now, last month, you received the report with all the bells and whistles. This is just an update, and we stand for questions.
And board members, do we have any questions on the construction report? I think we're good.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. That takes us on to board items, and this is new business. We are looking at a brand-new policy, and Mr. Stout will present.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Dr. Sanchez.
Wow, that is a
That's a
long title,
mouthful.
isn't it? My kids used to call me Dr. S, if that helps.
Dr. S. Good evening, sir. I stand before you to present a new policy to our school board and our school district entitled Policy EEB Echo Echo Bravo, Business and Personnel Transportation. This new policy addresses the regulations associated with the district's fleet vehicles, specifically our cars and trucks, Suburbans, and vehicles that we rent and/or lease on a daily or monthly basis. The policy will address the assignment of these vehicles for our business use. It will state all users adhere to the state, federal, and local statutes and ordinance which are in place, ensures the fleet is maintained and inspected on a daily and/or annual or regimented basis, which falls in my house. Requires that anyone transporting students in a vehicle must follow the regs outlined by New Mexico Administrative Code. I stand for questions.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I had a question on this. Are parents allowed to train to use the vehicles to transport students when there isn't a district person to do so?
No, ma'am.
Not at all?
No, ma'am.
It's not allowed in a code or regulation or anything?
That's exactly right. It is not allowed.
Because we always get those questions when there's nobody to drive them. But they are allowed to take them in their personal vehicles, correct?
To take their own child to a
Or to
vehicle?
take a group of
To an
children?
event?
Yes, to a sporting event or, no?
I don't,
Madam President, typically, we have a policy and instruction, and Joe, please chime in as if my memory is not serving me correct. It is really specifically prohibited
Okay,
that parents transport students in a private vehicle on school-sponsored activities because the school still assumes liability
Okay.
for any accidents that may occur. There are instances, Madam President, on a field trip, if students are returning or not coming back to the school base, there is a provision for the director, chief academic officer, I was going to say associate superintendent, the chief academic officer to actually grant permission for that with appropriate documentation, but it has to be their own child and not the children of other parents.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that that was not even a consideration.
That is correct.
Because that is what we get questions on sometimes, on transportation.
Well, in my department as well.
Okay.
The
All
same
right.
way. Yes, ma'am.
Board members, do we have any questions or comments on this? Okay, so this is our first reading, and we will take it, I think we could probably do it just a second in approval, and just post it on the web.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you very much. Okay, this takes us on to old business, and this, we have taken the third reading and approval of policy JB Title IX Gender Equity for students, and we took it off the consent agenda for discussion. Did any of the board members want to begin that discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So let's start with the one for staff, which is
Okay.
G.
Well, the first
B.
one is student.
Oh, okay.
so
We can
just
start with
because-
that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So, for example, in F1, the superintendent shall designate a Title IX compliance officer. Okay, and then it uses the same term officer in F2. But then when we get down to F2C, then it changes to coordinator.
Oh,
And then
okay.
and then on the next page, on page 3, twice the word coordinator is used. I'm just wondering if that's, an intentional thing, or, would it be better? I mean, somebody might get the impression that there are two people.
Okay, we do-
I'm just concerned about what is the intent there, and.
Okay,
and-
the language.
Right.
Okay. It is officer, is it not?
Yes, ma'am.
And Miss Walkie is our,
Yes, she is.
That is correct, Madam President.
okay, so then, could we pass it by, and just correct that language?
Madam President, typically in a motion, your motion would read to approve the policy,
As
allowing
amended.
staff to make technical corrections
Okay.
as suggested by the board.
So would that be sufficient for you, Mr. Frank?
Yes.
Like, just
Just
to make
I
the
would say,
corrections?
take
yeah.
out the coordinator word and
put in
replace it with officer.
Okay.
I just have one more thing on the
Okay.
student document. In 3A, the last sentence, which is pretty long, okay? If a complaint was initially filed with another individual or office,
Hang on, let's get it on the
okay,
screen.
that's the last
Okay.
sentence, okay,
Under grievance procedures?
correct.
Okay.
If a complaint was initially filed with another individual or office, I think there should be a comma after office, okay? Or the investigation will be conducted by another individual or office, comma, okay? The Title IX officer will be informed of the complaint. I just think after office, there should be a comma there. I mean, and I'm certainly not an expert when it comes to the use of any punctuation whatsoever. I'm just throwing it out there, and I think, we should have somebody who's knowledgeable about this topic
Well,
make that decision.
Okay, I think that it can be corrected, and we will go ahead and approve that, okay, with the corrections, okay? Did you want to talk about the other one as well?
Yeah, the other one, it seems, the commas all seem to be
Madam
fine.
President, since these are two separate
Okay,
items, you
all
may
right,
want
we
to
can
take a vote on them.
All right, let's-
And then go to the next one.
All right, so I will now entertain a motion to approve policy JB Title IX Gender Equity for Students with the recognition that staff will make the corrections as stated by Mr. Frank. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Okay, so Mr. Castro seconded it. All in favor of
Aye.
this? Aye, so it passes. We now have a Title IX gender equity for students. Now let's move on for staff.
Well, I have the same question.
concerns?
Yeah, the same thing. The word on page 2, we're using the word officer, but when we get to page 3, we change it
Okay.
to coordinator.
And are we missing some commas here too?
I could not find
Okay.
any.
No, I just want to make sure, if we're going to correct it, we might as well do it right? Okay, so then I will entertain a motion to approve policy GBAA, Title IX Gender Equity for staff, allowing staff to make the correction of officer and coordinator and just using the word officer. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Ms. Hall seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and so that our gender equity for staff is now approved. Okay, that will take us on to a discussion on the qualities for the qualities and skills for our advertisement for the superintendent search. First, I would like to recognize the work of the Superintendent Search Advisory. We had 52 citizens, fellow colleagues. We had a good assortment, and I'll get into it in just a little bit. Oh, well, it's actually here. We had students, we had parents, we had certified staff, we had classified staff, administration, business community members, health and social services, government, and post-secondary participating in this advisory committee. And they did phenomenal work. When I first looked at the schedule, I couldn't believe it was going to take all day. I was only able to attend the morning. But I think that after I left, what they did after I left was incredible. So I congratulate their efforts and for providing the valuable feedback that they gave us on the type of superintendent that we want for our school district. So I would now ask if you participated, would members of the committee please stand up so you can be recognized for your work. Thank you very much and people did ask, will this be considered by the board? And yes, your work will be considered, and we are working on it as we speak. The advisory committee spent a great deal of time discussing the qualities that we as a community would prefer when looking for a new superintendent. The committee also broke up into different committees and provided their perspectives on 3 major areas. One was characteristics, and if we look at this, here's my form. The characteristic, they were, you can see it up there, transparent, integrity, innovative, and visionary. Those were their characteristics chosen by this committee. And then taking us to skill set and what they thought was the most important. Let's see, which ones are the skill set? Quality. Well, they're all characteristics. Oh, there it is. Here it is. It's another paper. Being able to communicate, being an advocate and a lobbyist, bilingual. I remember I put that on my list, and yet, look at here, it's 14 people voted for that. Team building, cultural sensitivity, and diversified practitioner. You can see how many people voted. There were 20 people of the 50 or so people there that voted for communication, and then you can see the numbers going on down. We also have the pie chart here that shows us communication, advocate, and bilingual are the biggest pieces there. The others go into the 22. Did you have any comments on that, about this particular process, Dr. Sanchez?
I do, Madam President, and I think that we'll ask Mr. Hand to give you a summary at some point of what, because there were very rich discussions, and one of the things that I really appreciate about the people who were there is that not only did they just submit words or submit phrases or submit questions, but we actually had a rather robust discussion about the qualities that people were suggesting to each other. And then we broke up into small groups in the afternoon by group, constituent group, and they came to consensus. Then they brought that back. Each group presented their ideas to the entire group, and then we used the latest technology we could find, little red dots that they pull off of paper to go vote for the things that they thought was most appropriate. So it was actually it wasn't just getting ideas out, but it was actually having a conversation. And I think that was the richness. And when it's appropriate, Madam President, I think Tim is going to give you a summary.
And I have one more thing to say. When we were all voting, we voted on the phone. So it was very democratic, if you will, and we learned to use our technology in a new way. And as we voted, the word showed up on the screen. And then if another person voted, it got darker, it got bigger, it changed. And so the tablet was just moving and changing and growing and developing. And at the end, you knew what everyone considered the most important thing. So it was very fascinating to me to do it that way. And I just commend the people that put that together. Probably, Tim, you had a big hand in it, and thank you for doing that. It was very easy to follow. So, Mr. Hand, can you come on up and walk us through the rest of this?
Oh, I wanted to ask him questions.
Okay. Of Mr. Hand?
About the questions.
Okay, well, let's have him talk, and then we'll go ahead and get questions from the board, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Sanchez, colleagues and friends. I'd like to thank you for doing most of the presentation for me, and it was indeed
Enthusiastic, anyway.
Yes, well, it was easy to be that way because it was very collaborative, very technology rich, and then also I thought very democratic as well, the way that we came up with this. And I'm going to go to the charts. So in the morning, I'm going to start with this chart, actually. In the morning, we did the phone thing where everybody was able to go in and vote. We wanted to just kind of get a good feel for the different types of characteristics and skills that we're looking for in our new leader. And in the beginning, and there are some things to kind of take away from this, the words transparent, integrity, innovative, and visionary came up with the characteristics. And then also for when we looked at skills, integrity came up again, and then leadership, and then honesty. So one thing that I found really interesting is that leadership came up in the morning, and then we all went back to our groups and started talking, and leadership actually by the end of the day came up with 0 votes. And we just got more specific about what leadership actually is, because leadership, yeah, we want a leader, but there are specific characteristics that a leader needs, and so we'll go to those. The biggest thing that came out when we're talking about characteristics, and this was really cool, it was the word catalyst. And if I remember from my 10th grade chemistry class with Mr. Cruces at Las Cruces High School, who still works there, he was actually 12 years old when he was my teacher. A catalyst is something that speeds up a chemical reaction, but doesn't actually change itself. And so there was a really rich discussion about having a leader that just takes the resources around her and then speeds up the processes and makes it more effective with a better product. And so it was really, really powerful that we came around with catalyst. Integrity stuck in there once we got to the afternoon. Visionary, someone who is empowering, someone who's innovated, and then also approachable were some of the big ones there. And then we moved on to skill sets, and communication came out number 1. Of course, any good leader of any type of organization must be able to communicate the vision and get people inspired about what we're doing. I worked with the student group, and they specifically, when we talked about communication, they said there's 2 types of communicators. There's those who like to listen to themselves, and those who you like to listen to. And they said very clearly, we're looking for someone who you're engaged to listen to, who can communicate. Advocate lobbyist, our leader must have the ability to garner resources, and be it social capital, be it budgetary things, but to be able to pull things in together. Bilingual came up, as you adequately described. Team building, cultural sensitivity, which I'll expand upon what the discussion was there. The cultural sensitivity is that New Mexico is very unique. So when we talk about culture, we're not talking necessarily part of it's ethnic, part of it's racial, but it's mostly about the culture of New Mexico and the type of things that happen here.
Madam President, if I could add to that, because this was a very rich discussion on cultural sensitivity or cultural awareness. Many of the people in the audience stood up, not only understanding the uniqueness of our community and the strengths that our community has, but also the challenges that we are faced with as a community as it comes to issues of childhood poverty, lack of quality early child care support, all of those issues which many of you have talked about in the past. I've listened to you talk about these, but those present there, the issue of bilingual education, that was all part of that, and bilingualism, and very rich discussion. So that whole issue of cultural sensitivity / cultural awareness was a strong portion of the day.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
it also addressed the issues of poverty.
This was a 6 to 7 hour ordeal, so this is a very kind of top level go, but there were rich discussions about coming down to these few things. And then diversified practitioner really just talks about having someone with a very wide skill set that can handle all of the things on a day-to-day basis that our leader must be able to do.
And the other thing, Madam President, in many of the conversations from our community advisors, when they talked about a diversified practitioner, it really was a practitioner who had knowledge of many things, but actually was able to capitalize on the expertise of others. Identify good people to do the job, and then get out of the way and let them do their job. And so there were many comments about that diversified practice, and they ended up with that diversified practitioner. But many of the comments, and some of you were here, I hope I'm representing, sir.
Dr. Sanchez, I'd just like to add on the bilingual, it was English-Spanish preferred.
Right.
Because of our cultural area and where we are, not just bilingual.
Right.
Very good clarification. Thanks, Tim. So we were kind of subjective on what we bolded. We just took some of the big ones just to kind of pick the ones that most people talked about. I'll just hit on a few others. Young attitude, passionate, diplomatic, supportive leader, and then also a critical thinker. Economic independence, they talked about enabling the people in our community to use the economy to be able to, so if a child can get out of the grasp of poverty, they have a lot more options in their life and they become independent. And overall, I was just so pleased with the process itself, and I think it has come up with some good information for you guys to consider as you make this advertisement for the superintendent search.
And I want to compliment again your team for putting this together. It worked really well. I was super impressed. I hated leaving, but you did wonderful work. So thank you very much. All of you, the whole committee, thank you for your help. Yes, ma'am?
May I just say, I'm sorry that the day ended. It was so exciting and so informational, so much good participation. And I felt like people who were there felt like they were being heard, and that the board would listen to what their suggestions are and pay attention. And I'm sorry that it was a short day, because it seemed very short to me.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Hand. This was very good work then by the advisory committee, and it sets a good foundation for the board's next task. The board members met individually with our interim superintendent last week. Dr. Sanchez interviewed each of us to also identify characteristics and skill sets that we individually feel are important to consider. So Dr. Sanchez has created a summary of our interviews. Those summaries are in our package. And what color is that paper? Does it say?
It isn't a packet, but it's on a white sheet of paper that
Okay.
has,
I
it's
think
a
they have
copy
their individual summaries,
Oh.
don't they?
of what I emailed to you last
Okay,
weekend.
it's,
July 9,
Ju-
at the top of the page.
okay, well,
July 9th.
I will find it.
I know
Hang
there's a
on.
lot of papers.
It was just separate.
It was just one sheet. Okay, just let me get my, here it is. I found it. Okay. So we each have our own right now, correct? So then, let's see. Before we begin discussion on the board's ideas for characteristics and skill sets, we first need to review the advertising template. It indicates the sections of information that we can gather for national advertisement. Ms. Galvan will briefly review the advertising template and the advertisement placements. So I turn it over to Ms. Galvan.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Sanchez, and members of the board. I think if we could go to the template that looks like this, it has a red,
Yeah.
says advertisement template at the top of the sheet.
Also on your
Okay,
screen, Madam
yes.
President.
And yes, it's on the street,
Okay.
screen, sorry. It's also on the street.
It will be on the street tomorrow.
Yes. What
Okay.
I have done is taken the liberty of just providing you a general template of what you would normally see in Education Week, which is probably going to be your #1 placement for an advertisement. It starts with the title of the vacancy. It would need some information about our community and then about our school district. The third section, the superintendent job description, is what you'll be determining, where I have all the bullets. We'll be filling in the blanks as you go through your characteristics and skill sets. You need to determine the minimum qualifications, and then the next page has the preferred qualifications, which are more desirable characteristics. Then it would end with how to apply the information there, what your deadline is, and the disclosure statement that we would have to let the names be given to anybody who's going to ask about that. So it's subject to the New Mexico Public Records Act. So as you are discussing tonight, I will start to fill in with what are going to be the common themes, those that we've heard from your advisory committee, and then those that I will be hearing tonight from you as you discuss your characteristics. And then if we could, and we'll also need to get consensus, Madam President, on the first
Right.
two sections.
Right.
I don't know if you've had time to glance it over. I'd be happy to read it, or you could just read it silently. But it's sort of a sense of, the first paragraph is about Las Cruces, just a little bit about what it is like. Would you like me to read that out loud?
Go ahead
very
and read
briefly?
it. That's fine.
Okay, it says, located in southern New Mexico, Las Cruces is a growing community 45 miles north of the U.S.-Mexico border. Located along the Rio Grande and beneath the picturesque Organ Mountains, Las Cruces is home to New Mexico State University, Doña Ana Community College, White Sands Missile Range, and NASA White Sands Test Facility. It boasts year-round outdoor activities and plenty of hatch chili. The community retains the flavor of the Old West while preserving the cultural landmarks, customs, and traditions created when the area was founded in the 1800s. And then it has the website for the city of Las Cruces.
Okay.
If any of you have any changes, suggestions, at this point, we would want to get some consensus on that, or we could do it at the end. So it's up to you, Madam President.
Why don't we, does anyone have any comments on this paragraph here? Yes.
I just have one on the first paragraph, and that is, I think it's a good one, but might be, maybe we need to include there mention the Hispanic and Native American heritage, or maybe it's
Yes,
the demographics, how many of,
yes.
what percentage are made of Hispanic and so forth, so you can understand what they're facing.
Sure. I'll add that in.
It is a bilingual area. Chuck, do you have any comments on this? Mr. Davis, sorry. On this first paragraph.
This one here, Mr. Davis.
Some people like to put how many people live in the city. I didn't know how deep we wanted to go, so they could get a sense of how large
Okay, we'll
Las
get back
Cruces
to
is.
Mr. Davis. Mr. Frank?
I think that, what Mrs. Nash just suggested about the size of the city, I think is relevant. Although, the size of the school district is referenced in the next paragraph.
Yes, on the next one.
Which seems to give some indication of the size anyway.
Ms. Hall?
Probably just add the population, yeah.
I think that we need to address the fact that it is a bicultural area, being that Ciudad Juarez, El Paso, and Las Cruces have it's like a corridor, if you will. It's not like the Northeast corridor, but it is a corridor. And I think that needs to be recognized, that the three cities have people that come and go. There's a flux there. Did you have a comment, Mr. Davis?
No, I pretty much think the same thing. So I don't
Okay,
think.
all right. And I'm going to ask Tristan if he has any comments on this first.
Just the demographics and the population, I think would be really just for someone who's not from here, getting an idea of the town.
Okay, yeah. All
So
right.
I'll get the exact size of that tomorrow. It'll
Yes,
probably be around
Ms.
120,000 or something like that.
Okay, we have one comment from the audience.
Do you mind going to the podium
Yes,
so they can hear you,
please.
Irma?
Mr. Hand, you have the microphone?
Okay.
Actually, to facilitate conversation, Madam President, if I
Yes.
could, since this is kind of a discussion with
Yes, it
everybody.
is at this point.
Tim, would you take the carry the microphone so we can,
Yeah, just go ahead, Ms.
if somebody
Valespino.
wants to talk from their
I would like
seat?
to recommend that it's a tricultural
Mm-hmm.
to include our Hispanic and Anglo and.
Well, Mr. Castro had
Oh,
said
you
that.
did? I'm
yeah.
sorry, I didn't hear that. And also, not to take away anything from Hatch Chili, I would like for it to say Mesilla Valley Chili, because we're in Mesilla Valley. Las Cruces is in Mesilla Valley and not the Hatch Valley.
Okay.
And I think sometimes I get not offended, but they always mention Hatch Chili, but we have a lot of good Mesilla Valley chili in Doñana County.
Okay, thank you.
I don't want to take away from any of our farmers
No,
in
no.
the valley.
So, Madam President, I appreciate that, but we're just trying to keep in mind, this is a national ad
Yes.
that people know the Hatch brand, and it's a way to market somewhere to the area, so, but that's totally up to you.
Okay, you made your point, Joe.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else have a comment? So we'll move on to the second paragraph.
I
Okay.
have one more.
Oh, okay, wait, Mr. Castro is needing one more.
Madam President, I think we also, on this advertisement, we need to be aware that the educational system faces a challenge of high poverty levels in this part of the state.
Okay. Would that be part of the second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go to the second, and then we'll consider that.
So,
Okay.
Madam President, just for clarification, I want to make sure, see, it looks like we are going to add a statement or a notation about the cultural diversity, the triculture which exists, the size of our city, and a little description of the population that we serve. That's it?
When you
Yes.
say the culture of
The cultural diversity that's here, the triculture.
but what our primary concern is about the Spanish-speaking children in the area because of population.
Okay, well,
Madam
that,
President?
I think that's going to be addressed by the fact that if we talk about that corridor, it's international, it's 2 states, it's 3 cities. That kind of puts it into perspective right there.
Joe, you got that?
Yes, I was wondering, we could add something about a large number of Spanish-speaking families.
Say it
I'll
up.
combine it all and then you
Okay,
can look
yeah,
at it
maybe,
again.
maybe simplify it a little bit and, yeah, narrow it down. Okay, so I think we've got everyone's concerns in there. Okay.
Okay, and then the next part about the school district, it says Las Cruces Public Schools is the second largest school district in New Mexico with nearly 25,000 students, 3,200 employees, and a budget of $338 million. There are 25 elementary schools, 8 middle schools, 1 alternative middle school, 4 comprehensive high schools, 2 early college high schools, and 1 alternative high school. The district offers preschool, Head Start, multi-age classrooms, middle school magnet programs, a virtual learning academy, and one of the 40 worldwide Challenger Learning Centers supporting STEM education. And then it has Visit LCPS, our website.
And we sound really good.
We are
Yes,
good.
we do. A very powerful, yay, district. Okay,
Are there any
comments?
changes? Thank you. Sorry.
Yes, comments from on this paragraph here? Perhaps a sentence on the challenges.
Yes, the challenges of high poverty.
Yes.
Sure, low-income children, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yes.
And where did we put in the chilies?
Oh, that's in the first paragraph.
First paragraph,
We're going to put that up here.
Okay.
Oh, is it
unless you want me to put the
branded hatch chili?
cafeteria
Okay.
serve green chili occasionally.
Maybe this would fit into the first category, which is to mention New Mexico State University.
It does.
It does?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
right here.
Okay.
Okay.
Right here.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
missed that.
Madam,
Yes.
Oh,
Go
just-
ahead, Mr.
I mean, I think we're a district that, is not afraid to innovate and be creative, and I think we need to communicate that to any prospective leader of our district somewhere. I mean, we don't have all these good things because we're a stagnant school district.
I think the fact that we have so many different aspects to all these descriptions, all these different programs, it's going to cause them to take note. I think it's just by showing the programs and all the alternative schools, et cetera, it's just, they're going to say, oh, they are innovative. They've done this, they've done that, I mean, that's how I understand it.
We could add that we have multiple award-winning and innovative classrooms and programs.
Okay, that would be a good addition.
Madam President, members of the board, the other thing that I was going to add in order to support your statements about the triculturalism and cultural diversity that we have, we may want to add something about our commitment to dual language education
that's a
as
good
one
point.
of the phrases that we have in a series there.
It's not in here, is it?
And that would support the narrative at top and give it another hit.
Is that for the public school description?
Yes, the
Okay.
district offers,
Sure,
and I think it's dual language programs,
that's good.
And migrant programs as well, dual language
dual
migrant.
language and micro.
Can we also revisit the tricultural? I mean, why not multicultural? I mean, maybe there's more than three.
Well, there is, but
So
the
why do we
three,
want to exclude?
those are the dominant ones. That's what New Mexico is based on,
Okay.
okay? That's the
That's the
only
big problem,
reason, yeah. I
Mul-
can't think of
Multi
another.
includes three.
Okay, well, it's fine with me either way. Whatever reads better,
Try
Joe.
is more definitive.
If you are wanting to be more definitive that there is a Native American, Hispanic, and an Anglo culture, you would say predominantly a tricultural community. But if you want, I mean, every community basically is multi. It depends on what you want to try to sell about getting the idea of what our community is like.
I feel strongly about the tricultural at this point.
I'm not sure that everybody reading this will understand what the three are.
So then, if she outlines it, you'll feel better about it?
Yes.
Okay, so then let's do that.
Okay.
Okay?
I agree with you.
Okay.
People really don't understand about triculture.
That's true, but we're hoping to get somebody already in New Mexico, but then you never know, so that may not work. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so then the next part.
Okay, so now if we could, we're going to be filling in those other parts in a little while. If we could jump to this chart, please,
Okay,
which is our recommendations on where to place your ad or ads. Essentially, we have, if I could just kind of go through the list, the first one is the American Association of School Administrators. It's an online site. It's $560, and they'll be able to post that for the full 30 days that you're looking for somebody. The second one is you're going to be the most prominent site that you need to be on, Education Week, and those take up the next two rows. First, you would be on the online edition, which is their web online week edition and their edweek.org. Those are two different types of websites, but they're both under the umbrella of Education Week. It's $300 if we purchase then the subsequent Education Week site called topschooljobs.org. So we're recommending you do the top school jobs at $500, $495. Then you would also get the Ed Week online service for another $300. The top school jobs is a 30-day posting, and the Ed Week online is, we recommend purchasing 2 weeks. So that would be $295 times 2. What's that, almost $600 then? And that's your Education Week, and again, that's probably gonna be your most prominent placement for this type of ad.
Okay.
Then the next one is the New Mexico Coalition of Educational Leaders in New Mexico. There is no cost, and they'll put it up for as long as you need that. Followed by the Albuquerque Journal. They have the printed paper, which would be essentially $520 to do a Sunday, July 17th, and another ad on July 24th, their Sunday paper. Then if you do printed edition, if you go online with their online jobs part, it is $150 additional dollars, and that would be up for 30 days. So the Albuquerque Journal is going to serve a wide area of New Mexico, so we recommend that. Following that is the El Paso Times. They can't give us an estimate until we actually tell them how many words you're going to put in your ad. We would have obviously a much shorter version than the one we were just working on. It would mostly be about the title and where you can go on a link to go and look at the job description. But you do want to put
That's a
some
good
of
idea.
the information. We're going to estimate it'll be about $600 to do a printed ad for the El Paso Times on 2 different Sundays. The second page is the Arizona Daily Star, which is going to be your equivalent to the Albuquerque Journal, but hitting more people out in Arizona and then that side of New Mexico. We're going to estimate, again, they have to know how many words you're going to have, another $600 each they will give you a Sunday and the following Wednesday for free, quote unquote free. So you have 4 times where you'll be in the Tucson newspaper. That's followed by the Association of School Administrators for Arizona. We haven't gotten to be able to connect with them yet, so we'll still work on that tomorrow and see if we're able to get a posting on their site. Followed by the Association of School Administrators in Colorado. It's going to be $50. What we weren't really clear, though, was if that was meaning we had to be a member. We don't want to be a member, so if we have to be a member, we're probably just going to drop that. If we don't have to be a member and it's $50, that's really cheap, and that would be up for 30 days. Then we're followed by the Association of School Administrators in Texas, and it's free. Also, we need to verify. We don't want to be a member. We just want to get on your website, so we'll make sure we're clean with that. And then the things that are free to you are going to be our own district website. The jobs page on our website is the highest traffic that we have on our website, so we know a lot of people look at jobs on LCPS. And then Facebook is going to be free. We're going to be emailing to every district in New Mexico to put it up any kind of boards that they have. We're going to be emailing districts in Texas, Arizona, and Colorado. And unfortunately, New Mexico School Boards Association doesn't offer this service any longer. But I think this will give you pretty good coverage for really not that much money. It does seem like a lot when you look at each ad, but when you're trying to make a huge, impact, Ed Week is going to get you all over the country.
Okay. All right. Well, this looks very comprehensive to me. It's covering all bases. And do we have any questions or comments? Mr. Castro, did you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Anyone?
I think
Yes.
we should, get as much exposure as we possibly can. I mean, we're really saving a lot of money by not hiring some organization to do this for us, so
To do the search,
we shouldn't
yeah.
skimp on this aspect of it in any way.
Ms. Hall?
Looks okay to me.
Okay. Mr. Davis? Okay, I think we're a go on everything except the memberships.
Madam President, I would ask the student, because
Oh, yes, and I
you are
apologize.
kind of more into the media type things and how things get around. Is there anything that you might suggest other than Facebook?
Honestly, you could use Twitter, you could use Instagram, probably Facebook would be the best one, or just one of the websites, like the topschooljobs.org. Those are going to get the most traffic, 'cause I don't think people are going to be looking for jobs on Twitter per se. So probably Facebook would be, because that's the most official, especially for the district. So I would either say that one or the other websites that were talked about.
Thank you.
What do you think about the newspapers? Would that be
I
money well spent?
I do know that a lot of people would look at it. It would just depend on how many people want to, if they're reading it, how many people that are reading it are going to be prospective people. Because a lot of people hopefully are going to be knowing that we do want a superintendent. So how many people of the readers are going to be, hey, I want to just go and apply. So hopefully it's someone that already has an idea of what we are and what we
Right.
want.
Okay.
And Madam President, thank you. Trista, because I remember, when he was speaking, I remembered we'll also be doing LinkedIn because that's a networking
Oh, yes, that's the
website. And
other
so
one.
that passes along lots of career opportunities.
Okay. Well, I think it all looks good, and I think we're ready to go on this. Okay, so now we have to work on the actual advertisement. Yes, ma'am? Yes. Let's get,
I actually could be really loud if you needed to. Got it. Hi. I totally agree with our student board member about really the value for this position of the internet-driven outreach. I would just suggest, when I saw the state-based outreach that we were looking at, even if it's just email, considering California as a state as well, simply because they're very familiar with the same demographics with which we face. So,
That's true.
So it was just a possible addition.
okay, we might look at that and see any free advertisement space perhaps, or whatever you consider.
California School Administrators, something like that.
Yes, So that's a good addition. Thank you very much for that, Ms. Bryant. Okay, so then, we're good on that, right, Ms. Galvan?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, so then, now we're at the point of the board having an open discussion to determine the characteristics and skill sets. And we will get to those questions, I think, in just a little bit. I know you want to ask something on the questions. Remember, our goal is to reach consensus on the different sections that are being put into the national advertisement. Dr. Marufo will take notes on chart paper as we discuss and come to consensus on the characteristics and skill sets. This will fill in the section of the advertisement under the superintendent job description, and I'm trying to find it here, where it's at. We're going to fill in these spaces, and then, so please refer to your individual summaries. As we present our individual ideas, Tim will highlight identical characteristics that were recommended by the advisory committee. And after our discussion is complete, Dr. Marufo and Joel Galvan will summarize our consensus, and the board will have the opportunity to engage in further comment on this final items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I've highlighted the things that I want from my list. I'm going to start with Ms. Hall, if she could give us her list, and they're going to write them down, and then we'll come to a consensus here.
You want just,
Madam President, I would invite the board members who are in the back. We're going to be capturing up here, so there's lots
So you
of
can see.
room up front so you can actually see the charts. Please come forward.
Is what you think is most important. Yes, yeah. Oh, Mr. Davis needs to find his also.
Mr. Davis, yours is right here.
Let's see where it's at. Okay, so Ms. Hall is going to start. She's looking at her list right now. Characteristics, please.
okay. I think listener and communicator.
And he's marking him over there from what?
right.
They, okay. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, what did I say, listener, communicator? Honesty, integrity. understanding of classroom.
Sorry, what was that one? I'm sorry, what was that? Understanding of the classroom?
Classroom, yeah. Teaching experience, basically.
And is that it?
Go ahead, I have others.
Okay,
We don't
all
wanna
right,
take up the whole-
we'll see how it goes. And, okay, Mr. Castro, do you want to add yours?
Okay, I guess we're setting pretty high standards, and as we should, but sometimes I think that, are we setting the standards, or are we on a search for the Pope or the superintendent? No, I just joking aside, no, it calls for very high standards. I think it's got to be, the person's got to be student-centered, child-centered, and the kids come first all the time, no matter what. You're going to have a lot of external pressures, and you listen to those voices, but you certainly keep kids first. Has to be an effective communicator, and can effectively serve as the voice for the community and board values in all interaction with the public education department and the legislature as well. You have to be have a policy of openness and honesty, transparency, a lot of community involvement. I expect him to be or her a critical thinker and an effective problem solver with high standards and vision. Ethics, commitment to diversity, and work to avoid any form of racism and bullying, intolerance for differences, respecting other lifestyles and viewpoints. You must have the ability to work effectively with business, labor, and the unions. Look at them as partners. Establishing trusting relationships with the Board of Education, the teachers, staff, and other stakeholders. One of the reasons a lot of teachers are leaving is not necessarily because of salaries and pay, but it's that they're losing control of their work environment. They no longer feel valued, especially when making decisions. Leadership leads with authority, but it includes the stakeholders' voice in decision making. Again, this includes stakeholders and making a decision. He leads with authority, but not in a bullying manner. Has high expectations of certified staff. It has very high expectations. And a very important one is personal life. He conducts himself or herself appropriately and serves as a role model for the students and staff. Where he or herself is a teacher of morality and values. I have a whole bunch here, but I think I better.
Those are your key ones?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we have two, and Mr. Davis, are you ready to read your list?
Characteristics. Sorry. I'm looking for someone that is collaborative when it comes to the budget process, and the one who will focus on the teaching and learning of the district, and one that establishes a rapport with the board and other individuals, the ability to communicate with all board members, be a people-centered individual that is not black and white, a facilitator and peacemaker, innovative, willing to make changes, values each board member and their individual opinions and understands the reality of the teacher.
I like that one. Okay, is that it, Mr. Davis?
Well, a knowledge of a plan of action to address appropriate roles of accountability in a communication plan for the board and all stakeholders.
Okay. Yours is a lot about board relations. A lot about board relations. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Frank,
Should I just list the ones that have already been,
you do whatever you want in this case, please.
my first one was trust. I think we're looking for somebody with charisma, who has the personality traits to engage others. A person who is motivating and empowering. Somebody who understands human relations and has the ability to collaborate with all of the stakeholders. We want free and open communication. A superintendent cannot make good decisions unless they get input from the people who work for the superintendent. And so people have to feel secure and comfortable enough to give this information to the superintendent. I would like a superintendent that is committed to the concept of active learning. That students learn mostly by doing, not necessarily by listening. I want a superintendent that is a good problem solver, but is willing to involve others in the solution to problems and doesn't think that they have all the answers. We want somebody who is innovative and encourages creativity. And I would love to have a superintendent who will help LCPS have the reputation that this is a great place to work, and it's worth making less money here because the environment is so stimulating. And we need a superintendent that is inclusive, by that I mean includes people in all major decisions that affect the operation of the district. So the word was inclusive.
Okay. We're letting her finish writing that. Did you have something to add, Mr.
Yeah, I
Davis?
forgot to put this in.
Okay, what was it?
Is have a work ethic, understands that this is not a 9-to-5 job and will require working outside the regular hours.
Okay, okay, hard worker. A good work ethic. Okay. I'll let her finish writing that down. All right, I'm the last one, and I will ask Tristan also to add anything at the end, but I'll go ahead and give mine. A consensus builder. And I think there's several ways that has been addressed on that list as well. Cultural awareness, culturally aware, and in my preference, bilingual. I didn't think that would come up again, but it did. Understands shared leadership, not intimidated by it. A leader with humility. And I have lots more, but I'm just going to just say, is able to engage with community. And not just at the high levels, but at all levels. I had hard worker on there, but Mr. Davis already said that, so we're good. So I think, Tristan, if you have something you'd like to add?
Just one, like, going kind of along with the approachable, but also available for, like, be busy, have a good work ethic, but be available for, like, effective communication and for working with everyone from different perspectives.
And I don't think we said that, so thank you for capturing that. Okay.
All right.
So then we have a lot, we put a lot out there. So now, Dr. Sanchez, how do you see it?
Madam President,
Since we can't.
I'm going to hang these up over here. I was just putting them up
Yes.
so we could, because they're really your characteristics. And what I would ask Mr. Han to do and Dr. Maruco, because they were both at the community meeting, is actually look at the ideas that were identified by your community advisors, by our community advisors, and the consensus or the agreement here. And let's move these up over here on the back so you can turn around and look at these. We'll make this a little active. As our health people tell us we should stay active during meetings.
Are we going to use red dots too?
You know what? We didn't. I don't have red dots, but I could get some real quick, I bet.
Well, I have, Dr. Sanchez and Madam President,
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know what I'm sort of doing here. I have tried to combine the like words from your advisory committee
Okay.
with yours and to build the top portion of the ad.
Okay, do you want to tell us what they are?
Oh my gosh. Let's see, okay.
Do
Do you want me to just read it?
Well, she's going to write them down, so let's see how they.
I could give the jump stick to Bill if you want me to put it up on the board. This is what I have so far.
Oh, she's going to write them down.
And maybe I could give that to Bill. Could you
Okay.
maybe come and get this jump stick? Let me make a copy so I won't lose it myself. And put it on this
All right.
jump stick.
Would you have something to say, Mr. Frank, while she's getting that?
Yes. Do we want to make a comment somewhere about standardized testing? I mean,
Okay,
I think we don't want somebody who
not,
thinks that, has kind of a Secretary Scandera attitude towards standardized testing. So we want somebody whose view on standardized testing is infused with actual practice.
Wouldn't we capture that in our questions interview?
Right. Madam President, your adopted plan basically says, and I know that I provided some questions because we asked our community advisors to come up with some questions, because it's through the questioning process that you actually determine how they meet. Your search plan that you adopted also says that the interim superintendent will develop scenarios. These scenarios are problem-based issues that your finalists would respond to in how I solved. And so while we're not at the developing question stage, once you come up with your consensus items, we will then look at the development of questions to make sure you have adequate information to assess how someone would respond to these qualities, rather than just saying, I'm a really good person and I love kids. But, so I think we would get at it, Mr. Frank, Madam President, through your scenarios or questions, and we will capture that as part of the question process.
What I'm thinking is maybe we can attract people who have an enlightened view about this controversial topic and an important topic that affects our students profoundly.
I'm a member of the certified staff, and I'm one who gives that test. That didn't come up in our question. So if that's a question you want, to feel like that's important, I would suggest that
Mr. Davis can't hear you, so we need the microphone. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm a certified staff member, and I
It'll
give
move
that
up there toward the
test.
phone,
Yeah.
And that did not come up in our question for the superintendent. And I find it interesting that it didn't. I think that we all know we live with it. And if that's an important question for the board, I would suggest that if that's important enough that you perhaps pull the certified staff, because there were only 10 of us there, but it did not come up with any of us. That topic did not come up. I have very detailed notes, as you can see. I take notes about what everyone says, and it did not come up. And the people in that room that were the stakeholders are the certified staff who really are dealing with the effects of our current leadership. So I would suggest that you find a way to possibly think about how that might be effective, because you can do a poll and ask anyone if Dr. Pepper is healthy, and I'm sure you'll find 100 people that will agree. But I think that you might want to think about how you want to word that before it's put into a national ad. That would be my suggestion, since it was not our question, and we were the ones representing those people.
Madam President,
Yes.
to Mr. Franks, if you wanted to summarize it, it would almost see now that our teacher is talking, it may be knowledge of current assessment practice. Because that's general enough, and it's going to clue them into this is something, assessment practices are something that our Board of Education is very interested in. Something like that.
And if anybody, excuse me, if anybody is really interested in what New Mexico testing, what testing is required in New Mexico, they can certainly find out if they're interested in position.
Online.
And we probably don't need to say much more.
My perspective on this is the fact that it's mandated by the state and by federal government. And so there is no wiggle room on some of these issues. Now, as to how it's addressed, how they address opting out, how they answer questions from staff and giving information, that is that consensus building. It's the communication, it's the fairness. We're in this together, we're gonna work this out. And if there are choices to be made, can we take this one thing off the plate and we keep what we have to have, but let's take this other stuff, it's not important, kind of attitude that I value in a principal or when I was teaching, that they would help us, the staff, do better at what we had to do. And that's just my perspective.
And Madam President, if I may, I think we have somebody in the audience who was also on the committee there, but it really, what you're talking is, it's knowledge of current assessment and accountability and the controversies associated with it. So it isn't that you're asking them about whether they are for or against, but their knowledge of the controversies. That would then turn in, or could turn into, an excellent scenario that we could write.
Right.
And I think, Tracy, did you have a comment? Tim, where's the microphone?
Madam President, members of the committee, and Interim Superintendent Dr. Sanchez. As we look at the characteristics, I think we're really saying a lot of important things, but the one thing I want to advocate for that we really specifically say is demonstrable success in serving children of color, children from low-income communities, and English language learners. You want someone who's done it. And I think that's really important. And I think also, to tie into this conversation about testing, we are the second largest district in this state. And in the course of the next, where are we now, like several months, the Every Student Succeeds Act is going to be put in place in this state. And we as a state will determine a lot of how that happens. So you want someone who is proven to have very sophisticated policy knowledge, structuring that they've done this, because I feel like if we get someone who can prove they've done it, that's a lot more than being able to just say, yeah, I'm a good communicator, prove it.
Excellent point, thank you. And
Madam
did
President,
you
if I could capture-
that at all?
Well, I wanted just to go through what I'm hearing and what we had from the.
Yes.
So I'm trying to meld them together.
Okay.
This is just obviously a draft. I hope I don't have
Okay.
just a big mismatch here. What I've written is the 5-member board of, is it up on the screen? Okay. The 5-member board of education, and I've bolded the words that you all have been using then, seeks a visionary and child-centered instructional leader who can serve as a catalyst to active learning for a diverse student population. Candidates must possess experience in innovative practices in teaching and learning and demonstrates experience in serving English language learners and bilingual children. Candidates must be a strong communicator who is culturally sensitive and must possess proven abilities for consensus building and empowering a community in support of its schools. The selected candidate, a diversified practitioner, will be the community's educational advocate who has high standards for integrity and trustworthiness in all decision-making, consistently serves as a role model for students and staff. It should be the candidate is available and understands the reality of the teacher.
Madam President, I think one thing that's up here that
Yeah.
I heard consistently all through your individual interviews and also in your comments tonight, and that is, and Joe, it may be here, it is your ability to work positively with the Board of Education in advancing, operationalizing the Board of Education's vision, that kind of thing. You all mentioned that in your individual interviews, and Mr. Davis, you actually brought that up when you talked
Yes, he
about
did.
working very closely with all board members. And you were very emphatic when you said all, right?
Right.
Okay, so what do we think of this job description? Any questions or comments or things that are missing? I like the wording that Ms. Bryant said about, and I don't know if we need to capture what you said. Maybe you could repeat it.
I was listening to Joe.
It- Yes.
Yes, please.
Come
so we
on
can-
down, because.
Come on over here, Tracy.
Don't be shy.
I'm sitting in the back of the room.
Yeah.
Madam President, members of the board, and interim superintendent, Dr. Sanchez. As I listened to Ms. Galvan read it back, I felt like it captured it.
Okay, okay.
So I was completely content.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And just to make sure, because this is a very important piece, so let's go back to your comments. I think consensus builder is in your paragraph. Culturally awareness, cultural diversity is there. Bilingualism will probably go in maybe your preferred category later.
Yes.
This whole notion of shared leadership, I believe, is in that statement. Humility, I don't know how you capture that.
That's all right.
I didn't have that. Have integrity, trustworthy, high standards.
Yes.
Where's the shared leadership? I'm
But I-
sorry.
Sir, oh, no, I don't have the words shared leadership in
A
here.
consensus building, I guess that'll do.
Consensus builder,
That's
though,
the
you
same
have,
thing.
An empowerment.
which is a shared leadership.
Empowerment, yes.
And you have some comments about their ability to get along, work with others. This might be something that we could actually build into our scenario so you can sense how they view themselves in a problem-solving situation, who might they involved, et cetera.
Okay.
Engagement with the community, Joe, this was from,
That's mine.
You have empowering a community.
all right.
In support of its schools, so that addresses
And
it.
then our student advisor, Tristan, says available to work with others. And that really is a powerful
It's at the
thing
end.
that came out of our community.
And the other piece that's not from here is the approachable, so that available and approachable. they can-
Okay, that
Joe, have you
works.
captured that one?
I added to work with others because it just said available, but it was to work with others, being collaborative, right?
Available
Okay.
and to work with others.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, Mr. Davis, Collaborative during budget process, so I think you've captured that. Maybe not in the word budget process, but it's how they are collaborating. Read that phrase to us, Joe.
Well, that's consensus building.
Consensus building.
Um,
Are you comfortable with that, Mr. Davis? Does that capture it well enough for you? Establishes rapport with the Board of Education, and I think that's that whole notion of consensus, but works, and I think we need to say that, works very closely to implement the board's vision.
And I added that at the ability to work positively with the Board of Education in advancing their vision and mission. Vision, mission, and goals.
So that's there, Mr. Davis. Innovative, I think you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Understands reality of the teachers.
I love that.
Yes.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, do we want to expand on that, though? I mean, there's other realities that we want the superintendent to understand also. The reality of, EAs, the reality, of the classified staff, of the people that are driving our buses.
Educator staff, or
Well,
staff,
you could
teachers and
include
staff.
educational, instead of just talking about, you're right.
Yeah,
Staff,
of staff.
Of staff.
yeah,
And the classroom,
Staff and the classroom.
yeah.
Would that work?
That'd be a very inclusive term. Without mentioning, what we don't have here is the operations side of the house, but I think that probably
Will cover.
covers it.
The reality of all the people that work here.
I wonder if you want to say stakeholders, because it doesn't say families, and so that, you're really talking about everything.
That's true.
I don't have my teacher voice on. I'm wondering about using the word stakeholder, because I think to say families and to say children is of utmost important, and EAs and bus drivers, they are teachers.
Absolutely.
And so I think that maybe one path into describing
I
everybody.
added that after consensus building among all stakeholders.
Among all stakeholders, does that capture? And I think that kind of gets to your part as well, so it's everybody. Okay? Does that do it, Mr. Frank?
Yeah.
All right,
I just
good.
wanted to point that out then.
All right, and then their plan of action, mentioned by Mr. Davis, and their plan of action to do that, I'm going to suggest that is part of, as we develop your questions, or you, the board, selects your questions that you're going to ask the finalists, and the scenarios. And I gave you a preliminary list from your advisory, but that's not what we're actually approving tonight, so
Right.
that's for future. Mr. E.F., Ed Frank, trust in there, right, Joe?
Yes, it's trustworthiness.
Integrity.
And integrity are both in there.
All right, so there's the integrity kind of going along with that. Charisma, the engaging others, I think that's there.
Visionary.
Motivating and empowering. So it goes along with consensus building, attracting those, working with others, and letting them loose to do their job.
Right.
Open communication, I think it's in there.
Communication
Available.
is, yes.
Active learning.
Active learning is there as well.
Problem solver. I think that's, how is that mentioned that the characteristics of your new superintendent should be one that kind of, I think it's engaging others to do important work, right?
And
Joe?
diversified practitioner is in there, so that would cover it.
What is that, Tim?
Yeah, the only ones that aren't here are the team building, and then we don't use the actual word approachable.
Okay.
Well, we have
Consensus building is
consensus
there.
builder is the same as team building, I think.
And what was the other one, Tim?
The other one is, I don't think we use the word approachable.
But we have is available.
Approachable and available, I think, from our students' work, because I think
Okay.
that's a good one. Innovative, I think is in there. And build this reputation that LCPS is build or maintain the reputation that LCPS is the best place in the whole wide world
We
if
have
you
some
want to teach.
comments back here. Ms. Valdespino? And we have that chart over there too. We have one more, just, yeah.
I appreciated Mr. Frank's comments that of the ability of the superintendent to work with labor and unions. And I think somewhere that needs to be included because here in this district, we do have 2 collective bargaining agreements, 2 different unions. New Mexico is a collective bargaining state, unlike Texas, Arizona, and Colorado. And so I do appreciate your remarks, Mr. Frank, and I think something in there should be included about labor and unions, because that's part of the reality in our school district.
And Madam Chairman, I started to develop your minimum qualifications and desired with some other words, and one of them is the union, so maybe that is where you'll want it, or we could move it up when we get to that point.
All right, let's go through
Thanks,
everybody's list. Just
We
to-
have Ms. Bryan?
Oh, I'm sorry.
May I suggest just a tweak? First paragraph, the sentence that says, candidates must possess experience in innovative practices in teaching and learning and demonstrates, I wouldn't say experience, I would say success. And I would suggest success. In serving English language, I would say English language learners and bilingual children and low-income children, because that in and of itself is a very significant characteristic.
And actually, I would just leave out the word bilingual at this particular point, because English language learners are it. They do become bilingual. And then the poverty issue, how did you say it, Ms. Bryan?
Children who live in poverty?
And,
Yeah, that children who live in poverty. Poverty has a very specific governmental definition. I would tend to characterize it as low-income children because they can be it's a larger.
or economic disadvantage.
You can call, yeah. Thank you so much.
Whatever sounds better, I guess. Okay, we have one more chart to go through here very quickly.
Right, we had two other board members, and we want to make sure that Barbara, Mrs. Hall, and we have listener was your thing. Is it represented to communicator? Understanding of the classroom and
It's there,
the
yeah.
teaching
Communicate.
experience. Madam President, Mrs. Hall, we may want to put that in your minimum qualifications as a teaching experience statement. Honesty, are you satisfied that it's addressed?
Integrity's there, yeah,
Integrity, I think.
And trustworthiness.
and trustworthy.
And Mr. Castro, you talked about student-centered. Are you sufficiently, is it represented sufficiently in
Child-centered.
that write-up?
Oh, is it the,
You're okay with it? Communicator, I think has come up many times. Voice of the community. And how have we captured the voice of the community? I think is through our willingness to be a good problem solver, but actually engage the catalyst. I think the other word was catalyst for change. But is it
Educational
sufficiently
advocate, we have-
captured?
Well, the other thing that comes to mind when voice of the community, voice of the board as well, in support of a position on issues like testing and evaluations.
So works collaboratively to advance the vision of the board and
Well, there's some cases, superintendent don't support the board when it comes to going to Santa Fe and policies coming out of Santa Fe. We need somebody that can stand behind us.
so Joe, do we need to upload the revisions that you're making so they can actually see what you're adding as we're going along?
Yes, let me,
Because we've made some revisions, Mr. Castro, to see if we're capturing
Okay.
the intent of your comments. And let's get an upload.
and Bill, if you can come and get this jump.
Okay.
yeah, Senora
Oh, I'm
Flores.
sorry, go ahead.
Senora Flores, members of the
Yes.
board, Superintendent Sanchez, could we add something regarding special needs students as well? We do have bilingual
Yes.
and English language learners. Maybe that would cover our AEP students and our inclusion and low incidence.
Let's see where we can put that in right
Let's see
now.
what we have
What's the
as
second one on there?
our developing job description.
Okay.
To make sure everyone's voice is well represented. And Tim, you're following along. As I recall, Madam President, members of the board, we're pretty much hitting
On
the
track.
same kind of big issues that the advisory board hit.
I would advocate for approachable one more time. I understand that available is close, but available and approachable, I think, are two different things. Because you could be available but still not have that genuine ability to, like someone who feels like they could approach you.
We can change it, I think.
Put both,
Yeah, I would say-
available and approachable.
So, Joe, would you read what our new statement is before we go on and looking for is our voice there?
Just before we go on, I mean, how are we doing with that? I mean, is there anything else that hasn't been incorporated on what the community
That's really
produced?
the only word, and then we didn't specifically say team building, but throughout, there's a lot of examples about bringing groups together, empowering, of all
The key.
the themes that emerged, we've hit all of it from the community. And that's,
Okay.
I think, very strong.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how does the community feel? Do you agree?
Our members,
Oh,
our
yeah, show
representatives
us.
are here. We have a team.
Okay, that's,
Our
Everybody's
history
feeling good
teacher
about
from
it.
Okay, good.
Centennial High School, would you like to make a comment?
That was not one of the higher ones. Do you want me to read it, what we have?
Hold on, we're gonna,
Ask Mr. Montoya.
Mr. Frank has asked a question, so one of our teachers is gonna respond.
Senora Flores, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Dr. Sanchez, I had the awesome pleasure of facilitating the certified staff subcommittee. And I'm really, really proud, first of all and foremost, of the selection process altogether. I really like how it engages the community at that meaningful level. I really like how it is that shared approach to selecting our next advocate and educational leader and superintendent. I cannot thank you guys enough for allowing me to be part of this, but also the certified staff, the students, parents, and other community stakeholders. I really, really appreciate this job description as it stands right now. I really like how it does encapsulate the top 5 desired characteristics as well as skill sets, and I cannot wait to move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montoya. We appreciate your comments. So we're doing okay.
okay.
Let's go over it again then, Ms. Galvan.
Okay, I made a very slight change, but essentially it says the 5-member Board of Education seeks a visionary and child-centered instructional leader who can serve as a
Joe,
Hang on.
we don't have it on the screen yet.
It got scrolled away. Okay, we're good.
All right, the 5-member Board of Education seeks a visionary and child-centered instructional leader who can serve as a catalyst to active learning for a diverse student population. Candidates have demonstrated success in innovative practices in teaching and learning and have experience in serving English language learners and economically disadvantaged and special needs children. Candidates must be a strong communicator who is culturally sensitive and must possess proven abilities for consensus building among all stakeholders and empowering a community in support of its schools.
Okay, can you stop there for a minute? Have experience was going to be changed to have success in serving English language learners?
Demonstrate success.
Or demonstrate success?
Success was put in.
Well, we have it, I see, it's up above. Okay, so it's already there.
Demonstrated success.
Okay, you've got it, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's all right.
And there was something else. Okay, can demonstrate,
And
or,
she added the special ed thing in there, that it's not in the writing,
okay.
not in the written version, but
Yes.
Do we want to say candidates have demonstrated, or can demonstrate, are able to demonstrate?
Madam President, I would suggest candidates have demonstrated success in innovative practices in teaching and learning and in serving. I wouldn't put in experience there, and in serving, because that, if demonstrated success implies that they have the experience. So our ELLs, English language learners, and economically disadvantaged students. So I would take that out, because the fewer words that you have
Yes, I
is
know,
sometimes better.
it's very heavy right now. Okay, thank you.
And then your next section,
Is the selected candidate a diversified practitioner will be the community's educational advocate who has high standards for integrity and trustworthiness in all decision-making. The candidate must consistently serve as a role model for students and staff, is approachable and available to work with others, and understands the reality of staff and the classroom. The candidate must have proven ability to work collaboratively with the Board of Education in advancing the vision, mission, and goals.
That is very good.
I think it's powerful.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I just would wonder that they'll be willing to work with the unions.
Yes, we need to add a sentence.
Yes, so I was going to, did you want me to do that up here, or I had it in your preferred characteristics, ability to work with, I had Mr. Castro's language of working with union and labor, or business
Okay.
and labor?
Okay, I think
Business and unions.
preferred qualifications, I think it fits there.
Demonstrated ability. But, Madam President, in most of these job advertisements, your preferred are something that you'd like to see, but
Okay.
it's not a requirement.
Higher
So,
importance.
I think if you want to give it, elevate it to the importance, it needs to be in this superintendent's job description.
Okay.
On their ability to work with the unions, Dr.
Okay.
Work collaboratively
Ms.
with the
Bryan?
unions.
I tell you need to just stay up here, Tracy.
Actually,
I know her.
actually,
She
Madam
is-
President,
she
Fair
is
Acres
tireless.
Elementary, they actually use movement as part of their content
Mm-hmm.
classes, and so we're modeling
board
that.
needs
I'm a
to move
kinetic
soon.
learner. Senora Flores, members of the board, and Interim Superintendent Dr. Sanchez. I think that the business. I was debating in the back of the room if we're going to define skill sets, and that's the reason for my question at this moment. Is that a skill set or is that a characteristic? I think a characteristic is about your personality. A skill set shows that you can do something specific. So I'm curious about why it would go there. The other thing is you've got a subject-verb agreement problem in the last sentence in the first paragraphs. Candidates must be strong communicators, plural, who are.
Who
Sorry, I'm a
is.
communicator. It is what I do.
No.
Yes, communicators who are, and add an S on communicator.
So that conversation, that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I guess my question is if you feel that it needs the union, the relationship with the union is part of this, then I would say the relationship with the business community is equally important, because at the end of the day, you want young people
Yes.
who can launch out into the community successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So Madam President, the next thing that you're going to list, and I think that's a good point, Tracy, is your skill sets. How are we showing that on the advertisement, Joe?
It would not be a separate section. It would be under this description, and then you'll move to your
Minimum qualifications. So this is a statement about what is important to the board and the community about this next person. So I think we're going to have to add a statement there. And it really is not only, and I think, Madam President, all of you kind of said it during your private interviews. You talked about this person's ability to not only work with the unions, but also with the community stakeholders, to include all of the businesses and those kinds of things, the business community. So it's not only our internal stakeholders, everybody that works in the organization.
I think if we just add the word union, we already have consensus building among all stakeholders and empowering a community in support of its schools. So that's where I was thinking we were capturing the business businesses. It may, do we need to be more specific?
You could say consensus building, I'm sorry.
So I think we have a problem with the last sentence anyway.
Okay.
Okay, so the candidate must have proven ability to work collaboratively with the Board of Education in advancing the vision, mission, and goals. It doesn't say whose vision, mission, and goals. So you might want to put in the word its, but what we could put in there is this: the candidate must have proven ability to work collaboratively with the Board of Education, the unions, or the business community in advancing the vision, mission, and goals of the district.
That's good, that's good. I think that captures it all. Very good.
Or use our unions instead of the unions.
All right, so I wanted to go through this. Those are good changes, and we'll get a final one up there because you've got to vote on this, Madam President.
Yes, I know.
So, Ms. Hall, teaching experience,
I think we covered it.
honesty, integrity, and I think Mr. Castro, student-centered. Do you think that
Maury?
it's sufficiently, do you think your student-centered is sufficiently
I
captured?
think it is, yeah.
Communicator is certainly there. Voice of the community and the board, that last sentence that Mr. Frank elaborated, I think gets to that. Diversity, I think diversity is hit. Do you agree?
Diversity is covered here.
Working with the unions, now with that addition, your concern is there. Relationship with Board of Education, I think with that statement, it's there. Would you agree?
All covered.
Leadership with stakeholders, personal life, serving as a role model for our students and our staff, that's great. Transparency, vision, ethics, kind of goes along with that role model thing, and viewpoints. Joe, how are we capturing the viewpoints? Because he was very explicit in his private interview that the viewpoint, what he was talking about, the viewpoint is very inclusive and accepting of multiple viewpoints in the decision-making process. Did we address that sufficiently?
I think it's in the last sentence of the
There?
first paragraph.
Okay.
I don't know, what do you think, Ms. Galvan?
Would be the last paragraph, yes, it's sort of all inclusive when you have consensus, when you have consensus building among all stakeholders.
And empowering a community. I think it's there.
I think,
To be honest with you, if I could just be blunt at this point,
okay,
Okay,
less is more.
I understand.
And we're at the point where
we're
we
overflowing.
need to stop.
I
Do
understand.
you know what I mean?
But it's
Yeah.
actually in the selection of the
Yes.
critical words,
Yeah,
because it's valuing the opinion, or valuing the viewpoints, it's valuing the opinions, it's valuing the input, is what Mr. Castro in his private interview was very passionate about. And I'm just wanting to make sure that you're comfortable that it's there, because it was your big thing. He's comfortable, Joe.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Final,
So, I
final
think we've gone for everything. I think we look at the final
draft,
paragraph and our student.
yes.
Any final? You're okay?
Looks good.
I love your work.
Really good.
All right,
All right, we're going for a final draft?
we're getting
we have
the,
the next piece now to
Okay.
continue on.
Okay. The minimum qualifications?
minimum qualifications. Madam Chair and Dr. Maruco will capture those for you.
And we're all looking at our list again, right?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. So, we'll start with Mr. Davis.
Qualifications.
Well, the qualifications, first of all, is in New Mexico, administrative license, which is in effect, not that he's going to get one.
Right.
Did you say New Mexico administrative license or eligible for one, or?
New Mexico administrative license in that he has it, not that he's
In
going to be
hand.
looking for it.
What if we have an out-of-state person
Pardon?
that is, eligible for that?
Or eligible. If
I
he's
mean,
from.
somebody applying from Colorado, say, we're advertising there, but they're not likely to have a New Mexico license. But we would hope, I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to hire them unless they were eligible to get it.
Well, I just feel that the New Mexico administrative license means that they're aware of our problems and that would.
Well, I think we can add the word or eligible, or what is it, reciprocal.
Oh, reciprocal, yeah, I'll go by
Yes,
that.
well, yeah. Eligible or reciprocal.
You're going to find, Madam Chair and Mr. Davis, you're going to find on most of the advertisements that you see from out of state that they say New Mexico administrative license or eligible for the, to meet qualifications for the license.
I think that'll cover it, okay? What else, Mr. Davis?
Okay, got that one?
Yeah, we got it.
Well, then I have leadership experience at different levels, not
Yes.
so, and classroom experience at any level. They have to have lived the life.
Expanded knowledge, yes, okay. Is that,
It was classroom or teaching experience, classroom experience or at any level as a minimum qualification.
In other words, you had to be you had to be a teacher.
You will have some overlap, so these are going to reinforce some of the characteristics that you have.
It's okay to overlap, Joe?
And Madam President, these minimum qualifications that you're identifying now will allow staff here to screen the applications.
right.
The top part is what you all are going to be looking for as you review individual applications.
Okay, is that it, Mr. Davis?
Oh, yeah, but the other thought that I would not require a doctorate degree. I would
Right.
accept, well,
Preferred?
as a master's degree
Yes. Master's level or above?
or above, yeah. Because I don't want it to be the driving force that you are.
Right, no, it
So-
isn't important to me either. Mr.,
Do you care what area that's in? The master's degree?
Madam President, members of the board, in order to get a New Mexico
it has to be an
administrative
administrative.
license, you have to actually have a master's degree. It's required now through administrative code. So your only option above that would be whether you would put a PhD in preferred or just not mention it at all.
I would just not mention it at all.
Probably the best thing to do. So are you finished, or do you
I
have
believe-
something
I
else?
believe I've covered it, yes.
Okay, Mr. Castro?
Qualifications?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a New Mexico administrative license, a strong budget background, in collaboration with others, a teaching experience, demonstrated leadership in a district or a school setting,
Okay.
and the doctor is preferred or desirable. In it, yeah.
Okay. Let me have her finish, and Ms. Hall, if you could share yours and just as soon as she's done.
I think that everything's been covered that I have, except that I think either a superintendent who has had experience in a like-sized district or with district-wide experience, a like-sized district, because we can't have somebody from Animas coming, they wouldn't have any clue how to do a district this size.
So, Madam President, if I may, so it is experience level at a district in a like-sized district.
Yeah. Or
But
a
are
lot.
you saying, do you want them to have a superintendent experience in a like-sized district, or just
That
at
would be hard,
administrative?
but at administrative, yeah.
So
Yeah, it
leadership
could be
in a
leadership, yeah.
like-sized district.
And I think they need to understand New Mexico's cultural awareness and political system.
That kind of Madam President, if I may, that kind of gets at the earlier comments that we were making about standardized testing, accountability, teacher evaluation, what Ms. Hall just suggested, and that.
That hit it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Frank?
Ms. Hall?
Oh, go ahead and say it again.
Didn't get it accurately. Dr. Marufo was writing quickly, but
What do you have,
the
kiddo?
understanding
last
of the
one.
New Mexico
Oh,
political.
understanding New Mexico cultural awareness and cultural awareness and political system understanding of New Mexico. Something in that direction, Liz.
Something like we vote often and early, or something like that?
We vote often, and how often?
Early.
Oh.
Early and often.
Oh, I thought that
Early
was
and
on,
often.
Madam President, members of the board, I thought
That's
that
New
was only in
Mexico, isn't
Valencia
it?
County.
I'm sorry, I'm just
Or we
trying
vote
to.
Liz,
off.
can I see that a second? The last one you wrote, cultural awareness and politicals. Oh, okay.
And knowledge,
And knowledge of the political system.
knowledge of the political system.
Or understanding.
I'm going to ask Mr. Frank to go ahead and give us his list.
I think that a district of our size and quality, would be nice to have a superintendent with a PhD. I wouldn't make it an absolute requirement, but I think it's a highly desirable qualification.
We have, or
Preferred, yeah.
preferred,
Right.
yeah.
I think we want a superintendent that has successfully taught. I'm trying to think of maybe if we want a minimum number of years in there. Right. I don't know, maybe at least 5 years, maybe. Maybe that's too much. I also think we want a superintendent that has experience in administration, possibly building level administration or central office administration.
Madam President, I'm going to ask the Associate Superintendent of Human Resources. I give up. I can't remember the name. Dr. Marufo, it's my understanding, and to qualify for the New Mexico license that Mr. Davis and all of you have mentioned, it is my understanding that you have to have a minimum of 6 years teaching
That's
and
good.
your coursework to qualify for that. So that would actually that's maybe a good baseline. If they have that New Mexico certificate, the people that we would look for the teaching, maybe it should match what's required for a New Mexico license. And that would be 6 years. Right, Liz, is that correct?
We have that captured up here, so that's the years of experience along with having a master's degree in order to get your administrative license.
Okay, and is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay, Tristan?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, and I'm going to just reiterate, I had New Mexico administrative license or eligible, a cultural awareness and sensitivity. I think that that's a strong knowledge of bilingualism and bilingual education. I think that's the only thing that isn't up there. And I also put experience at different levels, so I think that's already been addressed. And Ms. Bryant, you had a comment.
Oops.
Madam President and members of the board, Interim Superintendent Dr. Sanchez. When I was listening to you and you put cultural awareness and knowledge of the political system in the same statement, I'm not comfortable with that because I think we're saying two very different things. I would advocate for separating those because cultural awareness, without question, is vital. And the knowledge of the political system, you don't have to know what our political system is. You need to know how to do what's right for students regardless of politics, right? That's a different statement.
And
so
we
I
are
wanted to
supposed to be
advocate for that.
apolitical.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how you want to address the politics of it if you even need to, because every superintendent is dealing with that.
Politics. Okay.
You
Thank
can have that as preferred qualifications, politically savvy.
Madam President, to go along, that's a good point, ma'am. But I think what the board, when all of you had your, you wanted someone who is knowledgeable about the educational
Policy.
system and the context of our educational system and those policies, rules, and regulations
And-
which drive a lot of that. And that's what they're trying to get at. So Tracy, that's actually a very good clarification, but I think what they all expressed in their private interview was a knowledge of, maybe it would be better to say the educational system in New Mexico, because that would include the standardized testing, teacher evaluation,
requirements.
school grading, how the legislature functions. Knowledge of the education system is rather encompassing.
I think it's good improvement.
Are you okay?
And then yes, thank you for that. And then the last statement I wanted to make was, with where the country is going, from the White House to here, career and technical education is the thing that is really focused. So I felt the need to in some way address career preparedness. And I don't know if you want to go to the fallback college and career ready. Frankly, that's come to mean two very siloed outcomes. It does not mean the same thing. So I just wanted to advocate for some language addressing that.
I don't think any of us have brought that up at this point, so. How do you feel about adding that? Career,
Adding what?
career and, what was it?
Workplace.
College and career readiness. College and career readiness. It supports college and career readiness programs.
Would you like that in the description at the top, Madam President?
I don't know.
Members of the board? Or would you like that in your minimum qualifications?
Yeah, maybe in the minimum qualifications. Okay.
College and career readiness.
Understanding of or knowledge of?
How are you going to want them to demonstrate that in their application
I
process?
do not know.
In their packet?
That's the difficulty, Madam President, members of the board, in putting in your minimum qualifications. That's very difficult to screen out. Do I just say, check the box, I am supportive of it?
Yeah.
You could actually include
Why
that
don't we
in
do
an
that
interview question, and
instead of
that's why I
putting it in
say
minimum qualifications?
perhaps a mention of it in your job
Are
description.
we capturing the ones that are going to go in, do you think? Well, you have the chart, so you'll be able to review them, yeah.
But we're
okay.
going to add the career, if there's consensus here before you go to voting, that we would put something about that in the top paragraph, and Joe is a master at doing that, so we'll see the final when it's
She's going to
final.
get very upset if we asked her to put something else in there.
I
She
think
will
we'll-
be.
Absolutely
I
not. It's
think-
your ad.
No, I think that we need to just include that as part of a scenario and a question. And then they can tell us how they're going to innovate in this situation.
And Madam President, I would suggest, and we'll keep track of that, members of the board, you've got the educational, knowledge of educational systems. And really, if you think about it, today, with the reauthoring of the ESEA and with the Common Core standards and all of that stuff, really the focus on college and career readiness, it's there.
You
so
want to
you
know
capture it.
how well-read they are on all of these key issues, nationally and state, so.
So Tracy, are you okay with that? And we'll capture it in a question-type format, and we will come back and get community input on finalizing the questions that we would recommend to the board as a community advisory.
Okay, and now we're on preferred qualifications? So, do we have preferred qualifications, or do we have enough there that maybe we could move some of those into that category?
Madam President, the only two things that you have noted here as preferred is a PhD.
I added one from Mrs. Flores's interview that bilingual. Did you want to have preferred?
Yes, bilingual, so you have two preferred. ¿Qué más, Joe?
Well, do you want us to look at this list? I can give it to Bill again.
All right, let's review the final. Dr. Maruffo's captured that. We have administrative license, leadership experience at different levels, teaching experience for sure, masters or above, which is part of the New Mexico administrators. Strong budget background, doctorate being a preferred, experience at some leadership level or superintendency in a like-sized district, cultural awareness, knowledge of educational systems. And what else did we have? Experience in building or central office experience, so we've captured that.
So I have a problem with like-sized district, okay? Is that, based on that, we're eliminating every single applicant unless they're coming from Albuquerque or us. Because we're the second largest in the state.
Rio Rancho and Santa Fe.
But they're not, they're saying they're like
Well,
size.
maybe similar
I mean, I think maybe that we might be better in preferred. Just because.
That's a good idea. I think it works in preferred.
Do you want to look at the list as it's reading?
Yeah.
So we're moving the
Hang on.
experience into a
We'll get you right
preferred?
now.
Because the way you're going, if you
I
get
know.
50 applications, you're going to immediately sort them based on whether they meet the minimum requirements, minimum qualifications. And, you know, so if somebody who's really seems like a super person, but they're coming from someplace with, you know, a population of 20,000, they're eliminated. They're out. They don't even get to the next round.
Yeah, so
I don't think we want to do that.
I don't want to do that either.
Right.
If I might interject, though, you're moving on a very important minimum qualification and asking for district leadership and administrative experience. Because you're focusing on the size of the district as opposed to what do you want them to know and be able to do.
So maybe we just need to eliminate it altogether. Ms. Valdespino, you had something to say? Well, you need to come up so Mr. Davis can hear. If you want to speak, just come on up because
Yeah,
that
why
way.
don't you all come up, and that way if we have access to the microphone,
Yeah.
it's not like we have a whole bunch. And we are going to start charging by the hour for the people in the last
The back,
two rows.
in the back.
And LASE needs equipment, and we're going to do a fundraiser.
Senora Flores, members of the board, and Superintendent Sanchez, in your preferred bilingual, I think it should indicate English and Spanish, because bilingual can mean English and German, English and French. So I think you're all wanting to say
Spanish preferred.
Spanish, English in preferred bilingual.
Preferred, Spanish preferred.
So, Ms. Galvan,
Yes.
explain what's bad about that, one of those minimum requirements.
Well,
about-
if you're, Mr. Frank, if you're interested in ensuring that you're going to have someone who has experience in leadership and administration, you'd want to keep that as a minimum qualification. Or is really your interest in that, whatever experience they have, you want it to be in the size of the district of Las Cruces or larger? So which one gets the greater weight? Because you have them both in the same bullet. So if you really just want someone who has district leadership and administration, you could just leave it at that and not worry about whether they're in a like district or larger. Because you're right, you could end up eliminating somebody who's fantastic from whatever town that doesn't happen to be as large as Las Cruces.
Right,
I think.
I think we have to
You-
watch out for that.
You know what? I think the strong budget background, I think that carries more weight than perhaps the size of the district. If you understand finance, then you're able to work anywhere, I suspect.
Well, the understanding is you get a superintendent, if he's going to handle all the
No, well,
budget,
no.
as opposed to, and let somebody else worry about the education.
No,
Or you want somebody with education.
I want-
Who will depend on somebody to handle the money.
Well, good question. I just think that they understand it then.
Yeah.
Strong budget background.
Well, they don't have to do it both, is my point.
No one has to do everything.
They are willing to take care of the educational things, and they will turn it over to their chief financial officer to figure out how to handle that.
Well, it's in there.
Suppose
It
they're
is in our minimum qualifications right now. Okay,
Well, let's change it then.
okay.
Madam President, Mr. Davis.
Here we are. I see it now.
Yeah. Madam President, Mr. Davis, I think with the budget issue, what you're putting in your minimum qualifications is a budget background. You certainly want a superintendent who understands state funding streams, who understands how to put a budget together. It doesn't preclude that person from working with exceptional people like Terry Dean or our unions in making budget decisions, or community members through community forums. But you do want a person who understands the fundamentals of budget in public schools, because it's a rather complex process.
So on the third point, should we just say experience in district leadership and administration and leave out the rest?
That would, Madam President, that would address Mr. Frank's question about eliminating some candidates.
But we do need the rest, district leadership and administration. Okay, 6 years teaching experience at any level, master's degree or above, budgeting background, bilingual sensitivity and awareness of New Mexico culture, knowledge of the New Mexico and federal educational system. Did you have a comment, Mr. Frank?
Yeah, I mean, experience in district leadership and administration. So what if somebody, is coming, they've just been a principal? They're out.
That is district leadership.
No, that's school leadership.
You could
Well,
put
and
district and
administration.
or school.
Could put what, Joe?
Put that in.
District and or school.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That means they might be from central office, or maybe they have their experience at the building. It would be either.
Right.
Okay.
I'm worried that we're just going to be tossing people out, in the first round, who don't meet these minimum qualifications, who we really need to take a good look at.
Well,
So we need to be careful here.
one of the things that I had was a varied experience.
I like
So,
that too.
You like that too? Varied experience in district
Varied.
or school leadership and administration.
Varied experience in district and or school leadership and administration.
Does that make sense?
So if somebody, again, if they've only been a principal, maybe they were a teacher for 6 years, then they became a central office administrator, and, so they don't have varied experience in school leadership. They've only been a central office administrator. Maybe
Okay.
they've never been a building.
Do you want to take
Somebody-
out the word varied
Yeah,
and just make it experience?
yes.
You see, varied to me is like from teacher, coach. I even had community organizer in there. In my list, I failed to mention that.
You did.
That's why I wanted varied. That's my purpose but that's fine. I don't mind. You can take it
I'm
out.
just worried that it's going to exclude people.
Okay, let's just take it out then.
You
Experience.
took it out, Bill. Take out the word varied and
Is
start with
he the
experience.
one that's doing no, leave experience, take out varied. Thank you. Very good.
Madam Chair, if I could ask you, and maybe it's just a personal thing of mine, I'm not sure how you're going to be able to demonstrate through your minimal qualifications in a packet whether they're bilingually sensitive and awareness of the culture.
Okay.
That is explained in your job description.
That's true.
So these minimum qualifications have to allow your team of searchers to go check, 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 check.
Okay.
Yeah, take that out.
Okay, that's fine. I am okay. Okay. I think we're getting there.
And Madam President, to that end too, the thing when the comment was made about knowledge of New Mexico and federal education systems as a minimum requirement is another difficult thing to check whether they really meet that. And if that really is important to the board, we need to take it up to the paragraph above under the job description.
Maybe we should just put it under preferred. And
If I'm a candidate from Colorado, and I think this is the place for me, maybe I look at that one and say, hey, I don't have that. I've never lived there. I'm sure I could learn it, but,
well,
I think it's preferred. It's a better place for it.
okay. And I think that if a person is going to come and interview, that they will study up on it.
Maybe that should go in question, because how are they going to demonstrate their knowledge?
There, I think with your, Madam President, with your preferred qualifications,
It's not a strict requirement.
we would not use those to screen anybody out. And we would then use that as we start to question semifinalists, because on your preferred it's easy to see if they have a doctorate or not, but it's somebody you can check a box and say, yeah, I'm bilingual in Spanish and English, but if they indicate that they are bilingual, and since it's a preferred, you might want to ask them to have a discussion with you in Spanish. Knowledge of New Mexico, we could ask some questions to assess their knowledge of accountability systems, report cards, how we test children in this state, or over-test them, one of the two.
And that's what makes a candidate strong, is when they've researched and they've read and they've gone back to see what the problems have been in the state of New Mexico, whether they've lived here or not. Yes, sir. Yes.
Just a point, isn't the master's degree or above kind of redundant, since it's a minimum qualification to possess the administrative license, and you're requiring, or you prefer the doctorate degree below? The master's degree and the minimum qualification is kind of redundant since it's required anyway.
Okay. I think that's probably a good point.
I think both bullets are redundant, the 6 years experience and the master's degree, since they're both required to get the credential.
Certification.
Right.
Are you able to get an administrative license without a master's in New Mexico?
Well, I believe that recently changed, because you used to have to be a level 3 teacher in order to get an administrative license. However, they've dropped to a level 2, and a level 2 teacher, you're not required to have a master's degree.
I would suggest, Madam President, it sounds a little redundant, but it's a very specific statement from the Board of Education.
and I think the
that
teaching
these would be,
experience.
you want at least 6 years of teaching experience. So I would agree, it is a little redundant to your point, but if these things are important for you as minimum, because I may qualify for a New Mexico license through reciprocity from one state to the other, and their requirements may be different as far as teaching experience. So it is a little redundant, but I would leave it at, if that's your statement of what
I feel
you all
strongly
want to
about
see.
Teaching experience.
It's better to be clearer.
I agree.
And redundant.
And if they balk at that, then that's clear sign that they don't value. You had a question, ma'am?
Just a statement, Madam President, Board and Superintendent.
You're getting the,
I was just in agreement that those two items be kept in. I know at one point there was discussion at the state level about a way to circumvent even educational experience as being part of an administrative degree that would come out of the College of Business, and it was
that's right.
it was changed a little, and so the person had to start with a degree in education. But just because it has come up and been tweaked as qualification, I think it's important to be
It's
very
safer that
clear
way.
about it.
Okay. Mr. Costo?
I had a question on that knowledge of New Mexico educational system, but I don't understand how, if it's the right word to say federal educational system? It would be knowledge of New Mexico educational system and federal mandates. It seems to be more appropriate.
That sounds good to me.
Madam President, and really, it's not a federal education system. It actually, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Castro. It
true.
really is the federal, state and federal.
Mandates.
If you want to be specific, it could be state statutes and regulations. Because that's where the mandates come from. They run it through the
Mexico's-
regulations or the statutory language. And that kind of covers the whole thing. So if they tell you they're going to withhold funding from you for not having 95% participation, that's that regulatory piece.
So then it would be the New Mexico state statutes?
State and federal.
New Mexico and federal statutes and regulations.
Statutes and regulations.
But the inferences that you're asking about more than, oh, you said educational?
Education,
Knowledge, I'm sorry, I can't get it. Knowledge of the New Mexico educational system
Statutes?
and federal.
no. It's just not the system, Joe. It's New Mexico statutes and regulations and federal statutes and regulations.
There it is.
Well, no, but we need a T in statutes.
Right, and Joe's the official copy person, so we'll put her thumb drive up.
Okay, got it.
Bill's trying to capture as best he can.
I
Thanks,
know,
Bill.
and you're doing a wonderful job. Yes,
So,
Mr. Frank.
I hate to keep coming back to it, but, so budgeting background as a minimum qualification. First of all, how will the applicants demonstrate that? And so what if they didn't, I mean, can you imagine a candidate who has zero experience in budgeting? I can. Somebody who was a teacher for 10 years and principal for 10 years and central office administrator for 5 years and had not very little to do with the development of the budget.
As a
I mean, they have input into the budget.
As a principal, you
You
have
have
to.
to have the budget. Yeah,
your
you have to
budget,
make,
yeah.
you have to make your building budget,
Yes,
and that's no small feat.
No, yeah, that's true.
yeah, so no, they have to
So-
have some budget background. We're not saying a degree in it, but we could always have them interview with Terry Dean and see if they can answer, if they can work their way on one of your pages, right?
Okay.
On a balance sheet or any of those things, right?
And Madam President, on an application of this sort, basically you would be asking for them to list their experience that they have with budget. It doesn't mean that it's actually to what level or to what degree. That comes again through the interview process
Right.
to see.
Dr. Marufo?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez, I would just like to say, when we look at this type of packet in human resources and we're looking at budgeting background, typically when you're looking through the candidate's packet, you might be looking for that information in their cover letter. And then you extend perhaps, or you develop an interview question as a follow-up to gauge their level of understanding of the budget.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
But I still think it needs to stay there, okay? Yes, come on up. And,
She still wants to put Mesilla Valley chili.
Yes,
Okay.
just red and green chili. Senora Flores and members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez, excuse me. When you, under preferred qualifications, when you say knowledge of New Mexico and, what is it? Federal, on the New Mexico statutes, would you have a candidate, if you have a candidate from Colorado or Arizona or Texas, would they necessarily know those statutes?
what I had.
Just a question.
What I had told Dr. Sanchez about that is that if you're interviewing in New Mexico, you're going to research this.
Okay.
So then they would show some knowledge. I'm not saying that they're going
Doesn't
to.
have to be extensive.
Yeah, it's not, but to know if they're going to research Las Cruces Public Schools, they'll know that the Board of Education has had its little trysts with Miss Scandera, et cetera, and they'll know these things. So they'll have, if they're really truly interested, invested in this, they will research it, and that's what you want to see. Are they doing their part? Okay, that's our purpose for that.
And Madam President, that really is a good comment, but the federal statutes, no matter what state they're
Yeah,
coming from, those are going to be
common.
the same in all of the states. But when it comes to New Mexico, I can tell you, doing a job at the district level without having a rudimentary knowledge of the workings of New Mexico laws puts you at a serious disadvantage. And even when you have a great attorney and things like that, but when it comes to personnel laws, those are a little more generic because they're driven often by federal court, but you really have to have some knowledge. It would be very difficult to be a superintendent here and not have that knowledge, and I would ask Mr. Dean, Dr. Marufo for concurrence on that.
Okay, so now do we have a final?
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I'm giving the jump stick back to Bill. You didn't mention, or maybe I missed it, and I had added it in from your personal interviews, the second bullet, demonstrate experience with dual language and bilingual education. Did you want that to remain in there?
I think so. I think it's important. What we didn't capture was the economic disadvantage.
You're talking about demonstrated experience, not about
Yes. Mm-hmm.
knowledge.
But we did.
If they were somewhere that,
We did capture it here, right?
In the description.
All right, why don't we go over the whole thing
Yeah.
and see how it all fits?
Can I also suggest that, we have those two paragraphs, looked at. We need a bunch of eyes to
Yes.
look them over really carefully, because we don't want anything to go out that has, anything close to a grammatical a mistake in it. And it's not easy. I have a college roommate who's been writing a grammar book for the last 10 years, and he wants to get it published someday, but every time he goes to revise it, he finds something in there that is embarrassing to him. Well, we only have a couple paragraphs. We have to make sure
Right.
there's
And it's
nothing
It
wrong.
is going to be sent to legal counsel as well.
Okay.
So that they can
Okay.
review it. And I don't know who else will look at it.
And Madam President, members of the board, you're going to notice your suggested motion that staff has made for you think is to allow the editorial
Yes, at the end of-
changes, not only for checking for grammar and stuff like that, and getting people to read it with fresh eyes, but actually to allow for the adjustment based on the publication requirements, because they won't always let us submit
Right.
these paragraphs, even though Joe wanted to add
And it
more and more
will be
words.
adapted to newspaper ads, et cetera.
I'm looking at, let's jump it up and down. It has
There, one more time for you.
minimum qualifications, master's degree or above. This minimum is a master's degree, period. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Or above.
Thank you.
Okay,
Take off above, that's a good catch, Mr. D.
Good point.
all right. Are we ready to review it all?
I think Dr. Marufo was going to just briefly go over how to apply and the notification statement.
Okay, let me see. I've lost track of where we're at.
Well, how about,
And you need to, to discuss about the salary.
Benefits
Oh,
package.
yes, we still have that to look at. Okay.
okay, and the other one was demonstrate experience with dual language bilingual education. They have to have experience, or do they have to have knowledge of
I think
research?
experience is more powerful than knowledge in our district. We need it.
Well, the question is whether it's a minimum or preferred.
No, it's minimum.
Madam President, if I could, as a district level administrator, there are every person at this table, including Mr. Dean and Joe, we have direct experience in bilingual dual language programs because of the very nature of our instructional program. While that would be an associate superintendent for instruction, that's the kind of experience we're looking for. That does not mean, it says leadership and administration. It does not mean direct experience in teaching those classes. But it is in some way that they have experience in working with,
promoted, supported.
demonstrated experience with dual language.
Yes,
So I could talk about my
developed, yeah.
experience in working with the director of dual language or whatever. There are multiple ways to show that, but I don't think that says teaching experience. So it's experience with, and they would have to
Even
then provide the
administering
documentation.
Those kinds of things. Even administering those kinds of things would be experience.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. All right.
You okay with that?
Now we're gonna look at the superintendent's salary survey. Sorry, let me see where we're at. So we have sort of a consensus here, but now we're gonna look at this salary survey. And Dr. Marufo, do you wanna walk us through this? Or?
Mr. Dean, I think.
Oh, Mr. Dean, I'm sorry. I'm looking in the wrong place.
Board.
Okay, Mr. Dean, you need to stop resting and
Here it is.
and kick in here.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Sanchez. On your green sheet, and I just received some information today that we can also insert on this. Does it need to be closer, Rich? So there was some information that I have been unable to get as far as the Socorro and the Colorado Springs information. But we will continue going through that. A lot of the information on the in-state schools, I was able to pull that from the online budgeting system. And then I made some phone calls. The things that I felt like that, you can see the numbers versus the number of students that they have, versus the number of employees they have. Now, in Albuquerque, the number of annual days, this is not on your sheet, so you may want to write this. There's 22 annual vacation days given to the superintendent. They have a cell phone that is issued by the district. No home on the no internet paid for provided at home, and a vehicle is available to the superintendent. I have learned that the Santa Fe superintendent just recently resigned.
We heard that.
There was a special, that was really the only superintendency that I've been able to get a hold of, that there was a special benefit beyond just the normal benefit of the employees. And I forget his name, Joel Boyd. He had negotiated a graduated annuity, or an annuity payment, or payment to his annuity that graduated, depended upon, increased based upon the number of years that he had been in service with the Santa Fe schools. That was the only thing that was really remarkable that needed to be placed on this. Salary is, you can see it's all over the place. We have, as far as the in-state schools, Gadsden at $101,800, Rio Rancho at $197,250, and Albuquerque at $240,000. So this is the information that I've been able to attain so far.
Okay. Well, Tucson is definitely out of our reach, I think, huh? As far as salary?
Yeah, they had to
That's
pull the
high.
paddles on
But
me.
they have-
And Madam President, Tucson is
Yeah,
a much
it's
larger
double our-
district than Las
double our
Cruces Public
size, yeah.
Schools, but you wanted a regional comparison, and those are
Right. And Albuquerque Okay,
May I ask a
so.
question?
Go ahead.
Are these starting salaries or are these current salaries?
Madam President, Mr. Castro, those are the current salaries.
Okay, so
salary.
somebody had been there a long time would have a higher salary.
And that is the situation, as in Rio Rancho, that person has been there for a while. I think the Gadsden superintendent's
Right.
been there 10 years.
Yeah, at
más o
least,
menos.
Terry, and the Roswells, and I'm sorry, Madam President, the Rio Rancho Superintendent, Sue Cleveland, has been
Right.
superintendent there, I think, for about 20 years now.
Ever since it opened.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is determine the band in which we would be. Is that what we're talking about?
Okay, so what do we need to decide? The exact amount?
Madam President,
Guide us through that.
really, I think that what you need to do is, and this would be my recommendation, you've got this information as far as range, but I would, most of the advertisements for superintendents says negotiable.
Okay, and that's what we should do at this point, right? And then we take this information and we'll talk about it later, correct? Okay.
And Madam President, members of the board, I actually looked at numerous postings in preparation for this rather lengthy process, and as many of them say, what were the words? It's so late, I'm getting tired.
Yes.
Based on, negotiated between the applicant, the finalist, and the board, that would include your not only your salary, but your benefits package.
Yes.
And commensurate with, sometimes they talk about the salary is commensurate with other salaries, regional salaries. So I don't know how we could write that, but Joe, if you could, I think we looked at some of that
Well,
language.
it depends on
didn't
if
we?
they want to do it commensurate with regional salaries or commensurate with job experience, or leave it open so that they could decide later. It's up to
I think
you.
experience and/or.
Negotiated with a finalist.
I think that's fine.
Okay?
We're not going to make up our minds right now.
No.
Okay? All right, so then that takes us, we need to just look at the final application here. And do you want to read that for us one more time?
Actually,
Or,
the last section is how to apply, basically, is that they're going to use Apple Track, right, Liz? And the deadline, I think
oh
it's
yes,
going to
Dr.
be
Marufo?
August 14th, because I think we actually are able to post this July 14th.
Yes, so the applicants will go through the system that was brought up earlier. AppleTrack is our online system, and so we will accept applications from once this is approved and you have given us the green light, we will post it immediately and we'll leave it open until the closing date.
Okay. It looks good to me.
And Madam President, is that the date that's identified in their adopted
Their adopted plan is actually, I think, the 13th
of August?
of August.
So, man, we're just going to make a slight shift because we want to make sure, the reason for that is we want to make sure we
Takes time.
edit it very carefully, to your point, multiple eyes, and we want to have our district attorney, our school attorney, or our board attorney review it for accuracy and make changes.
I think holding off a day is an excellent thing to do, because we're all very tired now and not
we
able
are.
to decide. But we will then take a vote.
And I'm sorry, Madam
Yes.
President, we just want to make sure you're okay with the notification of the records are not going to be held in confidence in case someone requests that.
Right. I read the opinion on that, and I agree with it, so that is fine also. Okay, do we have any other items that we need to do, or are we ready?
We are ready, Madam President, at this point, as
And-
required by your search plan, for you to review it, and then you would go to the motion stage to accept it, so we can move to the next stage in posting it.
So then I will entertain a motion to review and approve.
You want it read first
Oh,
to the
go
board,
ahead and
Madam
read it for
President?
us, yes, go ahead.
Joe, would you please do that for the board? Would you
Read the
read
entire,
the entire thing so they can read for the flow?
Just up to preferred qualifications, that's fine.
So I'm sorry, do you want to start with the minimum qualifications then? or the
I
very
think the
beginning?
superintendent's job description is what
okay.
the board was interested in.
Sure, the 5-member Board of Education seeks a visionary and child-centered instructional leader who can serve as a catalyst to active learning for a diverse student population. Candidates have demonstrated success in innovative practices in teaching and learning and in serving English language learners and economically disadvantaged and special needs children. Candidates must be strong communicators who are culturally sensitive and must possess proven abilities for consensus building among all stakeholders and empowering a community in support of its schools. The selected candidate, a diversified practitioner, will be the community's educational advocate who has high standards for integrity and trustworthiness in all decision-making. The candidate must consistently serve as a role model for students and staff, is approachable and available to work with others, and understands the reality of staff and the classroom. The candidate must also have proven ability to work collaboratively with the Board of Education, the unions, and the business community in advancing the district's vision, mission, and goals.
Good.
Your minimum qualifications are going to be possess or be eligible for a New Mexico administrative license, 6 years teaching experience at any level, a master's degree, experience in district and/or school leadership and administration, demonstrated experience with dual language or bilingual education, a strong budgeting background. Your preferred qualifications will be a doctorate degree preferred, bilingual, being English and Spanish speaking, knowledge of the New Mexico and federal statutes and regulations. The salary will be a salary and fringe benefits negotiable and commensurate with experience. How to apply will be via AppleTrack. The deadline is August 14th. The contact is Dr. Steven Sanchez. And the notification on the advertisement will be that all resumes, applications, and other materials submitted for the position are subject to the New Mexico Public Records Act. Applicants' names cannot be held in confidence.
Any comments from anyone?
Madam President, there's only one as it was being read, and that is the New Mexico and federal statutes and regulations that apply to education, because that's a rather extensive body of legal law that
Federal educational statutes.
knowledge of New Mexico and federal statutes and regulations.
Knowledge
Knowledge of the New
education.
Mexico and federal educational statutes and regulations.
There you go.
Educational federal statutes and regulations. Okay. Then,
You have to take out that A. There's an A that
yeah,
has to
there
come
is
out.
an A in there.
Yes.
I think you got it, didn't you, Ms. Galvan?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I am going to move forward. I will entertain a motion to approve an advertisement for the superintendent search to include the characteristics, skills, and salary statement as determined by the board, and for staff to make necessary editorial changes to the advertisement as appropriate to the style of the individual publications without changing the core requirements agreed upon by the board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, should we do a roll call vote?
I think you should do a roll call vote
Okay,
on this,
Ms.
Madam
Hall.
President.
Mr. Frank?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Prosper?
Yes.
I vote yes.
And I vote yes, so the ad is approved. Thank you.
Madam
Thank
President,
you,
if I
thank
could
you.
make one statement very
Sure.
quickly. I apologize for the lateness of the hour, but the importance of this work
It's
that you
critical.
just did today is critical in hiring the type of superintendent or instructional leader that the board would like to see, and as important, what the community has told us, the community representation that they would like to see. So I know it's a little late, but thank you for those people who were here.
And thank you for staying as long as you did. We appreciate it. We have board member reports. Does anyone have a report?
I do. I went to 5 elementary schools to see the K-3+ programs. I saw students engaged, teachers involved, mightily involved, and sparkling, sparkling buildings. They were just, I could have eaten off the floors. They were beautiful. And I have a comment I'd like to make, if I may, and I will be quick. With regard to the resignation of Stan Rounds as superintendent of Las Cruces Public Schools, in my opinion, the lack of trust for Stan to make professional decisions leading to his resignation was unwise and hurtful to the district. The criticism of his actions on his position stem from adult issues and agendas and do not with putting students first. Other issues are based on his implementation of state mandates and his handling of issues using his professional judgment. For example, the injunction against the transportation company furnishing bus service for Las Cruces Public School students. I fail to see why the lifting of the injunction in any way benefited the district. It was certainly not in the best interest of students and their parents, and it undermined the superintendent's ability to act as a professional in the administration of the district. The majority of Las Cruces Public School principals, all professional educators, gave Mr. Rounds the highest rating possible on all categories and when they were asked to evaluate his performance. He also had a great deal of support from other staff and community members. There are programs in place and others to be implemented which may not be funded with his leaving that benefit students and make Las Cruces Public Schools a better place to learn and grow. His expertise with budget matters, working with the PED, and overall knowledge and experience made him a valuable asset and will be difficult to replace. Budgetary concerns are certainly another factor. The expenditure of buying out the contract of the superintendent, the subsequent search costs, the hiring of an interim superintendent, and additional legal fees, which total up to about $75,000 already this year, make for a sizable amount of money which the district does not have to waste. As was so aptly stated in a recent Sun News editorial, it was an imprudent and impatient move by the board. With all that said, the resignation has been accepted and we are in the midst of a search. I would like to express my appreciation to the business and government community, parents, staff, and others who attended the July 7th meeting to provide input for the superintendent search, and to the staff members of LCPS and Dr. Sanchez and Tim Hand for their organizing and conducting this meeting and that meeting. The board has given many concrete suggestions to assist in the qualifications and necessary skills for a superintendent. It was a meaningful, insightful, and worthwhile conversation. It is my hope that the administration, staff, and board can reorganize, regroup, and work together to help the district continue to provide the best educational possibilities for its students. I will certainly be among those willing and working to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Any other board members have a report? I have a report also. Mine is a little bit different. Congratulations to our summer graduates. It was good to see you at Mayfield High School, and we celebrate your accomplishment of getting your diplomas. Last week, I received a letter from a father of one of our own students. He lost his daughter, a 2015 graduate, to a gun that was sold to her. I send my condolences to this family, and I will pass along the packet that he sent to me for each of the board members to review. He asked the Board of Education to take an action to oppose gun violence as a way of honoring his daughter. Now, I realize we're not a political organization, but this seems to be something that we can do without causing much distress. I personally stand with the action taken by the Las Cruces City Council to support stronger background checks on gun sales. As he points out in his packet, New Mexico gun laws are very liberal. I ask fellow board members to consider doing the same. We could potentially create a resolution to send to our legislators and to NMSBA, as Santa Fe Public Schools did last year. I know this is a difficult subject for some, but we are here for our students. Please read the packet, fellow board members, and let administration know if we should move ahead with a statement of support for the city's effort or a resolution of our own. As we watch the violence across our country's landscape, I personally stand for Black Lives Matter, officers' lives matter, all lives matter. My condolences. I do this every month now. My condolences to the families of the officers in Dallas and the men shot in Louisiana and Minnesota. The answer to the horror is in the words of Lin-Manuel Miranda. He said, "Is love, is love, is love, is love, and it cannot be killed or swept aside. Thank you. And I need to turn over to our student advisor. And here's the packet. Please pass it amongst yourselves. Take it home, give it to Mr. Frank, take it home, pass it on to the other board members, please.
So we all have to share the same packet?
I didn't want to make a copy of it.
Okay.
Okay, so in a couple of weeks, give it back to
We can just put
Dr.
it in
Sanchez.
the boxes of whoever.
Yes, just pass it
I'll
along.
take it and
Okay, thank you.
pass it along.
Tristan.
You're good. Don't worry. Don't pronounce it. You're good.
Yes.
So yesterday we had the preliminary meeting for the student advisory committee, which, as I wasn't there, but I've heard that it went well with the new student advisors who are going to be a part of this next year's committee. And there's not much else to report. We're going to be starting soon as school starts and getting everybody ready to go. So.
Yeah, and I can add to that administration is ready to go for our second year cohort, so we'll be in good. We may have a transitional team perhaps to start up and then work with the administrators at the schools, okay? Thank you, Tristan. And if we have the calendar of events, and I just wanted to add briefly, we need to add a retreat to and we don't have to do it right now, but we need to add it to precede the administrators' retreat. So we need to look at dates, and probably at the end of July or the very first days. It's not on here. I said we need to add, okay? We will have
To that point,
your
Madam
office
Chair,
contact.
we determined in Cabinet this week that August 8th would be the administrators' retreat, and we sent out a save the date for that. So
have time.
procedurally, why don't we look at a potential time for for the board retreat?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll send an email.
with a
And
couple of dates.
Or if you would send me an email with a couple of
Availability.
dates that might work better for you, we will accommodate our calendar to meet the needs of the board. So just let us know, or let me know,
Okay.
what dates maybe don't work for you, and we
Okay.
can schedule something.
Why don't we look at the last week of July, the first week of August, okay? What works for you?
I won't be here the last week of July.
Okay,
the
so
first
then
week of
that's,
August.
okay, first week of August then. Okay. All right, if there is nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you, folks.